soon-ish. Whenever it decides to be live. Okay. Okay. I think we're all set to go. Hello, Flamba Mamba, and Ane, and Calliope, and Kevin, and Nimrod Games, and Splat Clave, and Devi, yes, the early stream, and T-Rex Fleisch, I think, and Guster Animations, and Jules, and Dave, yes, it is the pom-pom shirt Devi, and Rapid Rowlet, and Dyson Sphere, and Tom, and Angel L, and Randall, and TK, and Osmosis, and JR Hyde, and Sky Yoshi 726 and Charv and Steven and Chaluna and Bubs and Atlas and Jordy Buns and Old Man Gel and Abutu and Ike the Beastest and Nightpool and Phantomu and Soap and Minerva. Sorry, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. And Volkir and Nibi Marco and Shy Bandit and Horse with No Name and Jazz Shomp and Beta. And I said Splat Claim already. And Crampy and Warspeed and Lucy Kens and Julia and Ellie and Let's Go Goomies and Pickle Assignments. Hello to everybody. And welcome to Squid School. Today we've got a special guest here to show the class, to talk about some super cool things from outside of the world of the bubble of the school. We are here with Hazmy. Say hello, Hazmy.
Hello, everyone.
How is it going? So today we're going to have a little bit of a conversation with Hazmy. Hazmy, for those of you who don't know, is another Splatoon YouTuber. He's made some other really popular tutorial videos. I get people comparing me to him all the time in the comments and stuff. It's Hazmy and Prochara. Those are the other ones. So. And I'm sure you get plenty of the same in your comments as well.
The Splatoon community is relatively small, I think, from that point of view. Like, everyone meets everyone.
Mm-hmm. So, figured, hey, let's combine the worlds together for a day here. Let's have a little Venn diagram bump here. So
yeah, which is gonna be interesting, honestly, because as far as I know, you're mostly teaching competitive, right? And ranked.
Yeah, and you're more on the salmon run side of things.
Yes, though I get stuck with it. I think it's more like I get stuck because I'm relatively new to Splatoon, and that's what worked. Though of course I enjoy it, so not to complain. Okay. But I'm also quite enthusiastic about Turf War, which I would like to work on a little bit more.
Sure thing, yeah. That is the topic that Hazmy has brought up that we're gonna have a conversation about. Want to talk all about Turf War and what its place really is in the community, and what it is that we think about it, that we should do with it. It's definitely a very unique mode in the way that it is perceived by the audience of the game. And so I think that it's a unique kind of case study for how, PvP game modes should be approached and what they're for, and, how we can interact with this game in a way that's positive for everybody involved. So,
definitely. It's interesting because in most online communities or even popular games, you could say that the general game mode that's the most popular, or what the majority of the player base plays, is also somewhat popular from a competitive point of view, or it's generally agreed in the community that that's a good game mode. Yet in Splatoon, Turf War is quite divided. I mean, not much to say there.
By the way, while we're talking about this, do you want to log on and play some Turf War since we're talking about it?
I thought about it. I actually have a lot of notes and references and everything. And
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to play well, so I rather just focus on making sure everything goes well. But feel free to play, of course. That should be more fun for everyone as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, people are gonna come in and be like, "Hey, look, it's Jem staring at the floor of the lobby," and I mean, like, "Yeah, that's what's
Exactly.
happening." So, figure
Exactly.
we'll play a little bit in the meantime while we're getting started on a conversation about it. Um, so you had some questions, some general topics that you'd drawn up when you DM'd me about this, and so I figure I'll
Yes.
let you kind of start off the conversation and guide like where you'd like to go with it, because I'm curious to hear what it is you would like to hear my perspective on.
Yes, of course. I prepared everything. I think I have a lot of good topics. Though at the beginning, I think I'm going to ask some questions about some announcements, if that's fine with you.
Yeah, sure thing.
Just some really quick thoughts. Yeah, I have a few topics here. And just as a disclaimer to everyone, especially in chat, um, obviously, Turf War is a divisive topic, I think, in game mode. Keep in mind that I will be asking certain questions, which might be a little bit um, thought-inducing or maybe provoking. But keep in mind, it's all as asked respectfully and just to move those cogwheels um, about the state of the game, really. So. Yeah, just a disclaimer, really. Hopefully, it's not needed, of course.
Yeah,
But before we
we'll
start,
be respectful. The substitute teacher and all that. The notes from the class beforehand.
yes, exactly. Just so like no one takes it too seriously, of course, because in the end,
They were
everyone
just
has an
playing a silly
opinion.
Squid Game.
Exactly, exactly. But before we start, then first, I'm actually quite curious about your opinion, because it would be too long to talk about everything. What do you think about the new map that they showed today? What is it actually called? It has a really fancy name, the pyramid map.
I
Um,
didn't actually take note of the name itself. I haven't gotten into digging into that too much, but from the
it's
look of it,
Umami Ruins. Excuse me.
Umami Ruins. Okay. I looked at it and it still seems really skinny. It seems like eel tail size, and not as long as eel tail either. So while there are some varied points where there is like significant like high ground, low ground cover, ways to kind of break up the map so that it's not just a straight line, I don't know that it's going to be enough. It still seems very narrow. It seems like they have not changed that aspect of the map design, which is definitely concerning. I don't know how useful the map is going to be in competitive if it is as small as it looks. But we'll have to get our hands on it and play it. I'm just thinking, like, I look at that raised top mid area, and I think, what if I put a crab tank there? And I don't like what happens when I picture how that would play out.
Oh yeah, and people have been panicking of the same scenario basically about Manta Maria, right? Like, what if a crab gets on the grates at the middle? Like, uh-oh.
That is the question of the metagame right now. What happens if crab tank? If your weapon has an answer to that question, then it is a viable weapon in the current meta. And if you do not have an answer to that question, then you do not have a viable weapon or comp in the current meta. So,
which is a good topic in itself, right? Because then you can argue, like, is the map the problem or the special balance the problem? But yeah, that's a completely different topic in
my
itself.
answer to that would be yes, but
Exactly. But yeah, I agree with your points. To me, it's somewhat of a joke that comes to my mind about it, that it does look narrow, but at the same time, it also feels like they might have listened to some feedback, though that's just guessing. And the final solution looks like the typical Japanese developer response that we heard your feedback. They stick to their version and they try to modify it to what people ask for, but they are still sticking to what they want to do, which is the narrow hallway type pathways, right? So like, yes, okay, but we're still sticking to what we want to do, and and it's always funny because I think you can feel that in Japanese design to a degree. That's what I respect about them. That even if something doesn't work, to a degree, they try to keep to it and make it work, which we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to cause quite as drastic of shifts in the metagame, which, you can talk about, deciding to be conservative or going overboard with design decisions like that, and really, which approach is best is just dependent on the situation. Like, if you're conservative and the game is really not working right now, then that's a terrible idea. Like, if something drastically needs to get fixed about it, and you're making really light touches, then that is an issue for the game. It's going to, be more difficult to play for a longer amount of time, and you're going to lose people who are playing the game while that's happening. But if there are only minor changes that are needed, and you keep making major changes and accidentally breaking more things than you fixed, then that's also an issue. And so, in striking a balance, we always want to be finding, the right amount to change. And having a tendency towards one option or another, it depends on you being able to create that sort of a situation in the game design where, if you're going to be conservative about it, you need to not have major issues. And I think Crab Tank is a moderately sized issue that probably should have been dealt with a little bit earlier than it has been.
For sure. And like even that is, there's so many topics there, right? That you could question. For example, I would be curious if Brellas would be in a more working condition. Like, could a more buffed or more solid version of a Tentabrella be somewhat of a counter to it? And all these little things which they just don't address. Like, it's just not addressed since the very beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm. So, that is, an aspect of the game that it does play into Turf War. Like, the metagame in the ranked modes is largely similar to the metagame in Turf War. There are obviously differences, just like there are, weapons that are better in tower control, weapons that are better in Rainmaker. But on the whole, I would say that, like, Turf War is very similar in the way that it's played competitively. Like, more so than people give credit for a lot of the time, in that what works in Turf War is generally that you need to take space, and to take space, that means you often need to win engagements against opponents who are trying to keep that space. And all of the ways of doing that work the same way because they're using the same game mechanics. Like, you get a splat in Turf War, it's not like you have to do that in a different way than you do it in any of the other ranked modes. It's just that the ranked modes centralize gameplay a little bit more, and the way that the objective plays is on a different kind of timer than it is in the ranked modes. In the ranked modes, you can just mercy rule your opponents, and that puts time pressure on the opponent. Whereas in Turf War, everything is based on winning the game at one particular second in the match. None of the other seconds matter if you're in the lead during that last second of the match. And so that changes a lot of the way that it plays. But I just... It's been a constant source of frustration for me when I comment on the viability of a weapon. Like, I talk about, okay, Big Swig, man, is it not doing well right now. And people will be like, well, yeah, because it's a Turf War weapon. I'm like, that's not how anything in this game works. So, like, that's something that I've always butted up against in my experience as, like, a Splatoon YouTuber. Just people not understanding that Turf War does play relatively similar, that like the metagame is not that different, that crab is still a problem, that, you know, X, Y, and Z things that I'm saying are actually applicable to the positions where they're trying to play, even as casual players. Anyway, I don't know. I was trying to segue it. I was trying to make it cross over into what you wanted to talk about.
Yes. Yeah. I also noticed that. Yeah, like we went a little bit too much into the map, but then let's get into it. Basically, well, just really quickly, do you actually play Turf War nowadays, Gem, or do you like to play Turf War?
During Splatfests. That's about
okay.
it.
So pretty much during Splatfests.
So I will play Turf War when I'm like playing with a streamer. So sometimes I like to just, you know, sign on to Twitch and, you know, find someone who's playing with viewers and just hang out and chill out and, you know, maybe give some tips if people ask or if like people seem to be receptive to them, but mostly just kind of play. I haven't done that a lot recently because a lot of the time that I have to spend with the game, I kind of need to spend on either getting better at the game or on helping other people get better at the game, basically, on doing my job. And so, you know, what I'm most interested in learning is about ranked modes. But I have done, you know, a good amount of research on Turf War and talked to some people who do play it competitively. Like, there was a stream a while back where I talked to Kiwi, who was formerly of Last Resort, top-level player, who was trying to hit rank 1 in the Splatfest Turf War. And so they, you know, were coming to me like, hey, is there anything you're noticing that I could maybe be doing differently? And I talked a lot about the philosophy of how to play Turf War at that time because, you know, we needed to talk about it at a very high level. So there's a lot that I have thought about with Turf War, and there's a lot that my opinion has changed even since that video I put out that is still one of my most viewed videos, which is kind of unfortunate because it's probably the one that I still agree with the least. There's a lot that I could say about it in a competitive context, about it, you know, as a game mode by itself and what its purpose really is for Splatoon. Like, well, what angle is it that you're interested in getting into first?
Well, okay, so basically, I mean, obviously your niche, so to say, is within ranked and also like trying to help people get into the competitive scene, and obviously the competitive scene is more active with the Anarchy mode. So just like I do videos for Salmon Run, I understand that like just your niche can take up your whole time. And there's just really no room to do anything else. So I understand where you're coming from that point of view. Well, mainly I was curious about that just as a small introduction, but to go on, because we're gonna get into some of the topics you actually mentioned, and I assume the video you meant was the what wins the Turf War, right? If that's the video you meant, which I actually want to talk about because it's quite interesting. But basically, when someone starts Splatoon, the first thing a player sees, I believe, is pretty much Turf War. And despite that, the community is, of course, a large part of the community is moving towards ranked battles and Anarchy mode. Do you think Turf War is a good introduction to Splatoon?
Yes, absolutely, unequivocally. I remember my first time rolling out onto the reef in Splatoon 2 when I had first bought the game and feeling completely overwhelmed. There was just so much that I was struggling to learn because this is a new control scheme I've never touched before. There are all these new mechanics to try and figure out, and as soon as a player sees me, I'm feeling like I'm getting like instantly deleted, and I'm like, oh my god, like what am I supposed to do here? And, you know, working my way through how do I aim, how do I move to avoid getting shot, you know, what weapons are working for me, which weapons aren't. There was so much of that to think about that I did not have time to think about, okay, so now that I know all of these things about aim and movement, how do I use these to accomplish objectives? And
All right.
That's kind of where my How to Get Out of Ranked series starts at level 10. it starts after you've had a significant amount of time. It takes about 6 hours to get to that point.
Yeah, it actually takes quite a long time to level up, I have to say.
It takes all that time to access the ranked mode, and I needed all of that time, and probably, honestly, more. I feel like I started really getting the hang of aiming around maybe like 20 hours in. It took me that long before I really had any idea what I was doing, and so I think that the game, you know, as unfun as it might feel for some people to not be able to jump into the meat and potatoes of the gameplay right away, you know, not to be able to play all of the modes at once, I think that the game has a good sense of, like, how quickly it needs to tutorialize itself in order for people to really not feel overwhelmed. Because I think that feeling of being overwhelmed would be even worse if I had jumped right into it right away. So I've always said that, like, at least as, like, a beginner mode, I think Turf War is excellent. You know, it's, for one thing, it gives you this sense that you're having an impact even if you are absolutely awful, right? Because at least you're painting the map, right? Anyone can paint the map. I can train a 3-year-old to paint the map at least. And having that sense that, you know, oh, I've got this number at the end, that's the amount that I painted, and that's a score that matters to the game. You know, I think that cushions people from how hard this game actually is. I think that lets them feel accomplished, even when, you know, if you look into having an impact from an analyst's perspective, I do think that, like, you need to be doing more than just painting. So it helps with, you know, helping people not feel overwhelmed by extra rules, by not feeling overwhelmed by the need that every other shooter has to just be getting kills all the time. It's really a very positive mode for a lot of reasons for beginner players. So I will never, you know, say that it shouldn't be in the game. And I don't think I ever have given any kind of implication that it shouldn't.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially if you think about it, and if you really think about it, that Splatoon, even as a shooter, is quite different to everything else in the market. Because as much as now, I never played a game with the motion controls before, at least not a shooter. And now that I played Splatoon and I completely converted to motion controls, I can't even imagine playing a shooter without motion controls. And that's also, I think, one of the phases everyone goes through when they start Splatoon, isn't it? And it's just so funny. And along that, as you said, there are all the other mechanics as well to the game. And it can be terrifying to do everything at the same time, which I think, even after many, many hours, a lot of people are afraid to get into anarchy battles because of anxiety. But yeah, it's definitely, like, Turf War has to be there at the beginning for sure, for people to get used to these very basics.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to actually ask if you think it does teach the basics, but I think we pretty much agree on that. But do you think it also prepares people for anarchy battles, though? Because that's, I think, a harder question, and I don't necessarily think it does.
So what I would say is that it prepares them with some things, and then as soon as anarchy happens, they are presented with more things that they have to learn that Turf War did not teach them. And I do think that there are a few things that they kind of need to unlearn. Not necessarily exactly because of Turf War, but because of how they approach Turf War. Because there are some ways in which Turf War can shield you from the knowledge that you're not having as much of an impact as you could. Seeing that turf meter count up is one of the first things that people see on their screens that, you know, oh, okay, so this is my score, is what they're thinking. Because, like, it's right there on the screen, rising up as I move out onto the map. And it's the first number that you see on the results screen. And so people are like, yeah, this is what's most important. It's important, but it is not what's most important.
Oh, right.
And so people will hyper-focus it And that's how you end up with a lot of people who, you know, they want to play their splooshes, they want to play their arrow sprays, because those get you really big numbers at the end. And what they have to learn, you know, once they get into the ranked modes is, oh, I'm getting a big turf number, but I'm also not doing jack to keep my team on the tower here. Like, I can't hold my ground when someone tries to push me away from it. And that's the trade-off for being able to get this big number. And that's what I'm really trying to get across in a lot of these videos, that, look, like, the thing that you have been trained to value is not the only thing that you need to value. And in fact, there are other metrics that are more important than the thing that you have been trained to value by the game's systems. The things that, you know, Nintendo trains you to value, they've trained you to value because they're things that will make you feel valuable. You know, they, as a company, want you to enjoy playing their game, and it is important in order for you to continue playing the game that you feel like you are being valuable to the team. If you don't feel that way, then that's miserable. Like, why would you play if you don't feel like you're having an impact, if you don't feel like what you do matters? So they want to create that feeling of being valuable to the team at all costs, even if that might not actually be the reality of the situation, because you're brand new to the game, and of course you're not going to be great at it at first, and that's okay. My goal is to train people to evaluate themselves on a basis that will actually help them win games. And so when I try to challenge those perceptions that people have of how the game works, I try to do so in part by going after especially Turf War, because where did they learn this? They learned it from Turf War. But I do feel that there have been ways that there are some ways in which I've maybe misrepresented Turf War in some ways. Like, I'm going after the way that it's played at a low level, but the way that it's played at high level is very different and very weird and very out there in terms of how competitive game modes work.
Oh, yes. It's actually funny from that point of view, because a lot of these habits that people learn, especially at the beginning of Turf War, are not necessarily even good in Turf War. It's just something that they developed naturally as, you know, learning the game, which I think happens in every other game as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's just interesting, because I think it also contributes to Turf War having lots of like myths and half-truths and like problems that people have, but they never really fully understand, or they never really try to fix. And then later on, it's just dubbed as, you know, Turf War is bad, Turf War is the casual mode, etc., etc., which is I think partially the problem, at least, because I do think to a degree it's a problem, but we'll get into it just a little bit later. Because first I wanted to say that a lot of people also mentioned this in chat, that, well, of course, when someone plays the game, you're barred to playing Turf War for a while, right? But then you unlock Anarchy battles, where you have objectives and the game opens up. You still have to ink, you still have to paint the map, but now you have to focus around an objective. But this can overwhelm people. And I first met this this concept back in StarCraft when I played that I believe is called ladder anxiety. And I think a lot of people are still suffering from this, that the moment something is something has a ladder or ranked, you get points, and you're basically ranked in certain leagues, people get very anxious and uncomfortable playing that mode. And because of this, I do believe a lot of people are actually playing Turf War, because they're, as you said, Nintendo doesn't really want you to feel like you're a loser or you lost. Even if you lose, actually, you get quite a lot of points, right? And you can always contribute. You can be just painting in the back with a reflux and shoot tenta missiles, and actually you're gonna be doing a lot of damage.
And they give you the medals too now.
Oh yes, and like I have 2,000 points, 3 medals, 0 splats. Well, I did fine, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I shot 5 tenta missiles. But yeah, I do believe that ladder anxiety is actually quite a big thing in all competitive games. And it makes people rather stay in the more casual modes, or at least the more chill modes. And it's actually pretty interesting because, as you said, Turf 4 also has its own strategy, its own tournaments, and it actually has a quite complex gameplay, especially on higher level. And it's definitely not as simple as, just the last 10-second matters, nothing matters what you do in the game, etc. That we can hear a lot. But there's some sort of a conflict, I think. Maybe not so huge, but you can definitely feel in the community that Turf 4 isn't taken as seriously, at least, as Anarchy Battles. I don't know if you agree with that or you disagree with that.
It depends on, I think, which competitive community we're talking about, because I think it's got a lot more prestige in Japan than it does in the West.
That definitely.
The Koshin tournaments are definitely taken very seriously. And it's not that the West doesn't know, how to play Turf War at all, because we get those Nintendo tournaments, and they tend to be qualifiers for other events that, our teams want to be a part of, and so they learn Turf War because that's the way that they win those tournaments, is by knowing how to play Turf War better than everybody else does. And to an extent, there are the teams that they can just outskill because they're top teams. But they have, in trying to get those coveted 4 to 8 spots that are available to them, they have definitely developed a sense of how the game is played that I think, has caused them to push the game a little bit. Just maybe not so often as it has for the other modes, because the other modes are in more tournaments.
Yeah. I mostly meant from even the casual community's point of view, like overall as Vester and Splatoon, not just the competitive mode, because obviously, especially with Splatoon 3, as the game kind of blew up. I think we can say that, like there was a massive growth there, and it's very much deserved. A lot of content creators also grew a lot with the launch, and we can definitely see somewhat of a shift towards, I think Splatoon 2 was more like casual oriented with entertainment and casual Splatoon content. And I think with Splatoon 3 you can definitely see somewhat of a shift towards competitive, which is a great thing, especially that the scene is growing. But because of that, I think you can feel somewhat of a little bit of how to say it. I don't know the right word, but you can feel a little bit of a maybe a I wanted to say it so fast, but I wouldn't say hostility, but less focus on Turf War from the community's point of view. Like it's looked down a little bit, that it's not that serious. It's not that it doesn't require that much skill from people, right? And that's actually something I want to ask, that do you think actually that if someone is not comfortable with ranked, with Anarchy Battles, and they mostly play Turf War, do you think a player who mostly focuses on Turf War, and considering the circumstances are similar, so they scrim with other teams, they have teams, and they really try to learn the game, can they actually accumulate same kind of experience as someone who's mostly in the competitive scene, grinding out Anarchy Battles and even X Battles?
I think the challenge of that, of like specifically running Turf War scrims, is that there are a lot of tournaments that also require the other ranked modes. That you're going to have to be good at those if you're going to make it any further in the tournament. When that happens, when you go to one of those tournaments, you'd better have practiced something other than Turf War. And so when you get to that level, the teams that are going to be getting there, they're not going to be as interested in practicing in Turf War because that's not what's run in the tournaments. And that's a feedback loop, and we can get into that in a second. But so for right now, if you're trying to be the best Splatoon team, then you need to be training in the other modes because that's what the other top teams are practicing. And if you want to practice with them, then you're going to practice their way at least some of the time. But so like, if you're just trying to avoid the Anarchy modes, my question would be like, what's the case where someone wants to do that, but is also interested in being the best? because I feel like somebody who's interested in playing this game competitively and getting really good at it, they're not going to be interested in, oh, I want to be getting good at specifically Turf War. Like, someone who's competitive is going to be just want to be the best Splatoon player. Usually when you get someone who's trying to be the best on one given thing, it's for one of two reasons. It's either that they're trying to push that one thing because they think that there's potential that people aren't seeing in it, or that they're trying to be the best at something for their own ego's sake, because they want to be able to say that, okay,
Right.
no one may play the silver arrow spray, but I'm the best one that there is, so I'm still pretty good, you know? It's like, it's one of those two things most of the time, in my experience. You either want people to recognize that, hey, you're overlooking this one thing, it can actually do stuff, or that maybe you're labbing it out, because there's also value in playing something that's not good right now if there's the potential that it could be patched later and become good then. And, if you really like that play style and you're waiting for it to come into the meta because you expect maybe it will at some point in time, the H3 mains out there, like, one day this weapon's gonna be good and then I'm gonna be the best at it. There's that kind of thought too.
Preparing for that one situation.
But also, a top-level competitive player right now, they may not like the Splash-O-Matic, but they're going to play it anyway, because it's what's best, and it's what they're going to get the best results on. So, I feel like those players, the ones who really are trying to win those tournaments, they're going to play what's the best now, and if what's the best changes, that's when they'll switch to that thing. And maybe you'll be able to use the data from the people who have been one-tricking it to realize, how it should be played faster. And maybe, that's those players are playing more for the sake of being lab monsters, and that's the value that they feel they bring. But again, if you're trying to be the best right now, I don't think that is a very consistent mindset to have, that you just want to play Turf War and nothing else. Because that's not how you're going to get the practice that helps you become the best at Splatoon.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that.
Now, that's the current state of things. Now, you're asking more of a hypothetical, I think, which is, if someone were to decide that they just want to be the best at Turf War, and that's all that they're really
that's
going
not necessarily what I meant.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. It was more like, because with that point of view, I agree with you, because that's pointless, right? Like, the best person is always going to be the person, or best player, so to say, who can adapt to any situation, right? Like, if you're thrown into any game mode, or with any meta, and you can adjust to that, then you are one of the best players, right? It doesn't matter what gets buffed, what gets nerfed. Then
and
you
even
can,
more so,
make use of it.
What's going to be best is if you can get top-level practice. Like, if you're able to get practice with the best players, that's how you become the best. That's the only way that you're going to be able to learn the mechanics and, be punished for the mistakes that you need to stop making. And those players are not playing Turf War that much. So, in a practical sense right now, that's something that is going to hold you back. But that is something, what if theoretically that would change? What if, top players could be convinced to scrim only in Turf War? Then would I say that they are going to be as good at the other modes? Is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, and I think from the next topic you will know probably why. But yeah, like, basically, if you would have the same circumstances that you can practice just as much and it would be just as competitive to a degree, then do you think there's a skill difference between, someone who plays Turf mode as a mode, or let's say Anarchy battles? Like, does the game mode actually matter?
I think there are definitely some weaknesses of Turf War that make it less palatable for a top-level competitive player. My thought goes back to PAX. The very first time that a top-level competitive tournament ever happened in this game was actually before the game even released, when they flew some top teams out to, I think it was PAX West, on September 5th. And there was a match that Starburst played. Now, at the time, and still now, Starburst, absolute best team in the West, no question about it. Like, nobody touched them. And it had been that way in tournaments for a long time. There were some teams who were able to take games sometimes, but they never took the tournament. Never happened. And there was a match that they played against Super P, who was the bottom seed out of all of the teams that were there. And again, they played Starburst a whole lot, had just not really been able to do that much against them. But they ended up with a more positive seeding than Starburst in the tournament because they won a turf war match in the last like 20 seconds.
I think I think I saw your video about it. Like it was the final team fight was someone made a bad decision, I believe.
Mm-hmm. There's just one final team fight. You know, Starburst is in the lead the entire game up until that point, but they make that one mistake, game ends, and Starburst loses. Now, that's on Starburst. You know, I don't want to take away from Super P's win, because, you know, they had to be good enough to beat Starburst in a team fight. But it was only the one team fight, and if you go based on, you know, who's able to win team fights most reliably, if that's your measure of how good a team is, which, like, I think is a pretty good measure of how good a team is whether they're able to, you know, control space reliably, repeatedly, then the game mode should reward the teams that are able to do that the most, and I feel like that was a situation where Turf War didn't, and a ranked mode would not have rewarded that anywhere near as much as that Turf War match did. Like, in a ranked mode, okay, cool, you won a team fight, but you're going to have to win at least one more to be able to get to a really high score. And if they've been able to win, like, 3 team fights in a row, that means that they've got a bigger push than you do. So, like, they've got some of that good team fighting locked in as points that they've already scored. You know, they've been able to take advantage of that to advance their position in the game, whereas a lot of the fights that happened in that match just ended up not mattering in this instance.
Yeah. I definitely see where you're coming from. And in the end, I think in the perfect world, like every game mode would be equally used and played, I guess. But mainly why I asked this is that I looked at some stats as well, from a website called stat.inc, but also just generally making some research on the community. And there's still a very large portion of Splatoon who only play Turf War, or who really like Turf War even. And my question would be, to me, it's a little bit weird, very understandable, and I understand the points, and to a degree, I agree as well that Turf War on competitive scale might not be the most exciting thing to watch or to play either. But to me, it's a little bit weird that it's pushed aside. Now, of course, you cannot force people to play something, but I think there would actually be interest for it. And to me, it just feels weird that the competitive scene doesn't try to push it a little bit more, because I actually think there would be more interest in it. Like, I think there's a lot of people who would be potentially interested in it. More teams could, you know, rise who actually want to play Turf War. And overall, the scene could benefit from it, I think, to just have more game modes, right? That are actually being played, especially since, as I said, like, if you don't consider Turf War on the same level somewhat, then because, like, there's no interest in it on the competitive level right now, then there's a huge part of the community that's just, you know, like, you're in the corner, enjoy your Turf War, and, like, here's the competitive scene. And I'm curious what you think about that. Like, do you think, to a degree, Turf War should see more competitive play? Do you think Splatoon would actually benefit from it?
So, I have a lot of background on this question from the Melee community. I played Super Smash Bros. Melee for about 14 years competitively. I was a tournament organizer, caster, and I was power ranked in my state for a brief moment in time. So I also grew up playing Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like, it was a game that I played with my childhood friends, just, you know, around the TV set. That was one of the games that was how we bonded as friends. So I come at this as someone who was casual and then learned to play the game at a competitive level. And there are aspects of casual play that simply don't work if you're trying to be competitive. Items is the aspect that I think is most related to this in Smash Bros. Because, you know, like you say, that there are a lot of people, you know, who play casually who just play Turf War and wouldn't want to play the other modes. And in the same way, there are a lot of people in Super Smash Bros. Who only play with items on and, you know, play banned stages and wouldn't want to play it any other way. And that's totally fine. Like, there is nothing wrong with somebody playing that way, and I would much rather have someone playing that way and then develop an interest in competitive play and move from there, right? Like, that is a pipeline towards people getting more curious, because maybe right now people aren't competitive, but maybe as they get better, maybe as they start being able to beat their friends and they start to get the feel for the game and they are really enjoying themselves, they start to look at, okay, well, maybe how is the game played, you know, by stronger players than me? And when they do, what they will encounter is a change that has been made to the game's formatting, basically, the removal of items, that is there to facilitate competitive integrity. Because once you change your question from, I want to have fun playing the game, to how do I be the best, you have to set things up so that there are some more restrictions in order for it to be fair. Because it's very easy to create a game of Super Smash Bros. That is not fair for competitive play. It's very easy to make it, you know, put 3 players in a match instead of 2. Well, now there are always going to be 2 ganging up on the 1. And that's configurable within the game, but it's a way that if you want to really test how good someone is, you need to, you know, control that variable, because that's a variable that can often make it so that the better player loses. In fact, it makes it more likely that the better player loses, because if everybody knows that that's the better player, they can just collude against them. And that was always a problem with, like, competitive battle royale games. There's always these accusations of collusion that are going around, which is that a player is salty, or is that something happened under the table? It could be either way, because there is legitimate ulterior motive here, and people might be doing that. So, like, there are certain things that definitely have to be there in a competitive context in order for it to be competitive at all. I defined competitive integrity in the last conversation with Magic as it's making it so that there are not rules in place so I can win, there are rules in place so the better player wins. So, for example, a rule in place so that I win, a very simple example would be, you're playing a game of tag, let's say, or cops and robbers or something as a kid, and you're just running around in the playground, and somebody says, okay, so the stairs are base, right when you're about to tag them, and then touches the stairs. That's a rule that exists so that I can win. There are rules in a place that has competitive integrity that are there so that the better player wins. And so I feel that items, for example, in competitive Super Smash Bros., are an instance of things that have to be removed for the sake of competitive integrity, because they spawn randomly. They could just, like, randomly fall on your head and explode. And the lesser player is going to want those things in play, because that gives them a better chance against a player who's just going to beat them in the 1v1 if the item doesn't fall on his head and explodes. So that kind of volatility is often something that will favor the lesser player. Even if there is some adaptation and some learning that the better player can do, there will just always be a random chance that between 2 players who are very serious about it, one of them just gets screwed over for no reason. And I think that Turf War isn't as bad as that, in that it's not going to create an artificial numbers advantage. It's not going to introduce an element of randomness per se, but there is volatility inherent in who wins a team fight, you know? Sometimes a split-second decision is all that it takes from one player to shift an entire team fight. And it can put the teammates who are otherwise playing really well in a position that's not as winnable anymore. Splatoon's a very fast game, and in fast games there is going to be volatility of that kind. And I think that the other ranked modes all do a better job of mitigating that volatility and making it so that it's more likely that the better team wins, because the advantages that you gain in the ranked modes are cumulative. They're all about, like, can you make multiple pushes at a time, and that's the only way you're going to be able to score significant points. You have to be able to hold the zone, not just, like, randomly cap it once at the very end of the game. You have to be able to hold control of the tower for long enough that it actually pushes pretty far, not just be standing on it at the end of the game. you need to push the Rainmaker somewhere, not be holding it at the end of the game. Like, and in Turf War, it really does feel like you just have to be holding the tower at the end of the game. And that's something where, like, it's not as easy as holding the tower, but it is easier than it is, I think, in any other game mode to secure that lead given one fight win.
I definitely agree with that. Though I'm quite curious. Like, do you think that's simply how, as you say, competitive integrity is, at least when it comes to Splatoon, or is this more of a community choice? I mainly ask because there are other very larger esports games, esports titles, even from fighting games, or like the father of esports, StarCraft. And in a lot of these games, it's very possible actually to win throughout a game, right? Like, you can actually be in multiple advantages, and yet the players can make mistakes where you were just going to lose in the final seconds because you, in StarCraft, let's say you messed up a Baneling rush, which happened a lot of times, or in a fighting game, the opponent somehow comes back with all parries, or of course, like, that takes considerably more skill rather than luck of a team fight. But what I mean is really losing a final team fight in the last second like a design error, or rather something that's bad, or is it just something that rather the community dislikes and does not want to play that much, if you know what I mean? Because technically...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's basically the end, but yeah, technically it's not uncommon in a lot of esports to be able to lose basically in just a few minutes from one bad decision.
So, first of all, with fighting games, I would argue that volatility is mitigated by the repetition of matches, by having, you know, a round of a traditional fighting game is going to be like 90 seconds. And so you can afford to play, like, what is effectively, it's not exactly a best of 9, because it's like, each round of a fighting game is often a best of 3 itself, and then you play like a best of 3 or a best of 5s of those best of 3s. So you get punished a lot less for those mistakes than you would in a game of Splatoon, where just by nature of the map, the mode taking a longer time and taking longer to set up, that you can't afford to have that many repetitions in just a single round of play. It's also something where you don't have to go through the rigor of picking modes over again. And so in those kinds of cases, like, you can just go next immediately without any, you know, extra time. And having that extra time lets a game like, say, Street Fighter, you know, with its Evo moments, you know, the big ol' parry and everything, it lets that moment not have this excessive impact on the match, because, you know, and I would say, you know, that is a moment where, you know, if you accomplish that many inputs in a row, you have outplayed your opponent for the majority of that round. That's basically how that works.
You deserve that win, yeah.
Right, because, like, you've got a character that's designed to turtle, that's designed to keep you all the way out the entire way, and you made it in against them, accomplished all these basically frame-perfect inputs, and then managed to follow up on top of that, which is also difficult. Like, the Evo counter, the Evo parry, is an insanely technically difficult thing to do, even to this day. So, like, that was like, okay, yeah, you outplayed that guy. But, so talking about, you know, other places where you can, like, you know, say League of Legends, where your team is ahead, but then you lose a team fight at Baron, and that throws the game for you. In those situations, it still took, like, it takes for the enemy team to make an even bigger outplay than they would normally have to, because the other team is ahead. Because they have to win that Baron fight against the team that is stronger than them. Splatoon doesn't have this system where your character gets stronger the more you win, like there is in something like League of Legends or StarCraft. Like, if you're ahead in StarCraft in the early game, that means you have more resources to work with in the late game. It's not like even in soccer. Like, let's take an even less significant example of this. In soccer, when you score a goal, there's a 1-0 on the scoreboard for the rest of the game. They don't have to score 1 goal to have the lead now. They have to score 2 goals to have the lead now. So they're, even just by nature of that score happening, more likely to win the game still. And I think it is a hallmark of a competitive play that when you win an advantage, that advantage should count and at least give you an advantage, if not a guarantee of a win for the rest of the game. There should always be comeback mechanics in place. There should always be ways you can make it back in, and that's what, penalties are for in the ranked modes. That's what, in a game like Super Smash Brothers, you have multiple stocks for. In a fighting game, you play so many rounds for. There are ways back in, but in Turf War, you don't get put at a disadvantage at all, basically, if you, as long as you just win the one fight, which was going to happen anyway, you can just kind of take the whole map pack for free. If it were in such a way that you couldn't paint the whole map up to the point where you have an advantage after a single fight win, then Turf War would be great. I'd be all for it. But the problem is that you can just get too much of the objective for too little compared to the other modes. You don't gain an advantage by winning fights. You just kind of stall until the very end when you need to win one fight, and that's the one that matters.
Yes, and that's actually a perfect point to move on from here. And it's actually, on a lot of points I do agree with you, because from that perspective, it's really frustrating, right? Like, if you are doing well throughout the game, or you're even in an advantage from winning fights or taking control of the middle, having more turf, and yet that you don't actually have any advantage to be better in a fight apart from the map design, if it lets you have a better protective or defensive position. And if the enemy team just pushes you back, then that's it. There's nothing you can do. And it wasn't that much harder for them than if it was the opposite way, which I can definitely feel, and why it's frustrating. Now, on this note, though, I wrote an email to Japan's one of biggest Turf War teams, and fortunately, I did get an answer. I don't want to mess up, but I did message Team Exist. I believe they are one-time champion for Splatoon 3 Turf Wars, and they have been in the top 3 on multiple tournaments. And Norisk-san from Exist was kind enough to answer me some questions, and one of the answers actually relate to this problem with Turf War, about especially the last 30 seconds volatility of the game mode. And I specifically asked them what they think about the differences between Western and Japanese Turf War, and if we should take it a little bit seriously, was one of the questions. And to quote, he said, "I think it should be valued a little bit more, because I believe that Turf War gives more possibilities to weapons than any other mode. Weapons that cannot paint have a role to defeat the enemy, and weapons that cannot defeat the enemy are also given a clear role to paint the turf." Sorry if some of the sentences are not completely correct. I just want to quote, but I think it was machine translation from their part as well. But he also says it's basically easier to know what to do with your weapon, and also you have a larger variety of weapons you can use. And yeah, there's just more possibilities for weapons that are normally not used in, let's say, Anarchy battles to be used in Turf War and have a different purpose. So it's actually, it gives more variety to the game itself, that more weapons are used. What do you think that's a good reason, though, to promote Turf War, maybe?
It's a reason to have fun playing Turf War, for sure. And it's something that, you'd love to see in, the modes that the game takes seriously, that it promotes weapon variety. But I think that this sort of puts the cart before the horse, in that the players who are going to try and be competitive, they're interested in the game being competitive first, and being, say, interesting to watch second, or in having a variety of weapons to play second. Like, what they're most interested in is what will win. And they would love to have a variety of weapons available that will win, but their first priority is not going to be the weapons being varied. Their first priority is going to be that the game can, the results of the game can be respected for being the pinnacle of the game. That you play this way, and people will recognize that you have done the hardest thing that there is to do, that is beat other people's, win the multiplayer. And everybody can beat the single player campaign, but very, very few people ever beat the multiplayer, Like, that's what the competitive players want to do. And so, in order to have access to that title, they don't really care so much about the game being varied. They care the most about playing the game in a way that will be respected as the official way, as the way that will let them be able to say that they're the best. So, if we want a game that is going to have varied weapons, that's a good priority to have, but that falls on the developers to create game modes that can be taken seriously in competitive play and also have that characteristic. We can't really control that. What we can control is playing the game in the way that best tests people competitively, and I just don't think that includes Turf War right now.
I see. Because I think what they meant is basically Turf War also allows, like in Japan, it's been seen that weapons such as the Reflux or even the L3 or the NZAP is being used because of their kits or the strategies they have used. And actually, it's a little bit of variety, to see different weapons as well in competitive already.
And my counterpoint to that is, ooh, Reflux, yay! More
yes.
Reflux, that's what everyone wants. Missile spam.
Yes, exactly. Though the point is rather, like, less the Reflux itself, but rather, like the different game modes can have different weapons that work in them, which is always interesting to consider. But
yeah, I definitely think that if there are other competitive game modes that can be taken seriously at a competitive level and provide that variety, that we should absolutely be championing them. But I think that the competitive integrity comes first, and I just don't feel that Turf War has that, which is the reason that I'm less on the side of it being a common competitive game mode. I think it should be played competitively. Like, I think there is absolutely opportunity for outreach for it to be played competitively, but I don't want it to be played at a major. A major is where you see who is the best at the game at that moment in time. And so that is where the competitive integrity needs to be the highest. I'm all for, like I said it in the last one of these talks with Magic, I'm all for all these kinds of tournaments that run different rule sets, that ban certain weapons, that try things out, that mess with the game, because that sort of experimentation under fire, that putting players to the test and seeing what creative solutions they can come up with when they are charged with figuring out how to win the game, that is one of the best ways that we can figure out how the game works. But I think that when we have done that in Turf War, we have found that there are a lot of ways that the game works that we, as a competitive community, don't really value as much for the reasons that we've outlined. And so that it's not something that I want to see being pushed up into a major right now. Like in Melee, there was a moment where there was a controversial technique called wobbling. Wobbling is a technique that is an infinite. It allows the ice climbers to hold a player in place and just consistently do damage. And up till a certain point in the game's history, the technique was allowed up until a certain percentage, because the ice climbers weren't already all that good even with the technique. They were still not top tiers. And it made for an interesting kind of gameplay loop where you really, really had to not get grabbed. It's something that was just in the game for a very long time, and then they finally started, trialing not running it in some regionals and some locals, and they worked its way up to one major, and at that major it was received well, and so it started being, added into the other tournament rule sets. Like, I think that's the process by which rule set changes should happen, that we should, try things out, and then if we do think that there's a conversation to be had about running things at majors after that we have that conversation then. But it's not something that we should introduce into the highest level of competition, because those sorts of changes can make the win feel cheapened, especially if they happen suddenly, if the teams are suddenly having to adapt to that with only a few weeks to train for it. So majors need to be very stable rule sets, need to have a very high level of competitive integrity. I don't think that there has been enough evidence that I've seen in the other tournaments where it's been run to suggest that having turf war would be better for determining which teams are best at the game than if we just ran the ranked modes. Like, I think the teams that are winning at turf war can also win just as well at the ranked modes, and that we'll have a better shot of seeing who the better team really is by watching them just play the ranked modes.
I see what you mean there. And I do agree with it, actually. I see what you mean there. So basically, turf war is possibly the least proper mode to determine the skill of a team, since it's how volatile it is, and so maybe it's not the right mode to include in highly competitive tournaments. If I caught everything right.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Like, I think that at a big tournament, the one and only goal is to determine what the best team in the room is, and maybe a few others after that if there is money involved. Like, that should be the top priority of a major tournament. There are other tournaments that, can be good for practice using other rule sets. There are other tournaments that can be good for testing out new rule sets to see if they actually help us test that better. But at the end of the day, like, for a major, that's the one that really needs to be the biggest priority, is just what team is the best. That, if we can answer that question better with the format, then that's the one we should be running.
Yes, and I do agree with that. I actually think the best would be if there were more minor tournaments that do have a bigger variety of game modes, right? Like, because over there you can actually have turf war included for more people to gain interest and actually build the interest in the competitive scene, right? As you said, it can be a really good bridge to let's say have a minor tournament for turf wars that gets people excited who potentially are part of the casual community. They might start to get competitive at turf war, and then slowly maybe that's going to convert them into playing more anarchy battles, and then getting into anarchy turf wars as well, and so on and so forth.
I don't know that I agree with that progression is how it would go. Because what generally happens when you have like a competitive event of any kind of competitive tournament, is a team will run into a team that can absolutely roll them. Just, it's not close. They've never been beaten that badly before, because the game has never matched them up with anyone that good before. And they run into this and they're like, oh my god, you people are gods. I literally had someone message me that in a tournament once, that like, whoa, you guys are gods. Like, you guys are gonna win the whole thing. We got like 32nd. Like, we were not close to winning that by any stretch of the imagination. And I think, hilariously, like 2 rounds after that, we ran into FT Win and got absolutely rocked. But like, I think no matter what game mode you put in a competitive tournament, if it's open, if you're not banning the stronger teams from attending, the people who are worried about competitive play are going to have the same experience, where they're going to get beaten really badly, and they're going to be like, whoa, holy crap, I was not ready for that, and they're going to feel overwhelmed. I don't think that changing the game, like, it might get them to sign up when they wouldn't have signed up otherwise, but they're going to have that same experience anyway, and so I don't know that it's going to help cushion the blow at all. Because one thing that happens with turf war is that the way that you win that is by spawn camping. Like, it's going to feel worse to lose in turf war against a top-level team like that, because the game isn't going to end quickly. Like, it's not like they're just going to knock you out in 40 seconds. You'll be like, well, okay, that happened, but let's move on from there. It's going to be that you have to suffer through being spawn camped for 3 minutes, and that it's not like nothing's going to really noticeably change in all that time, and you're not going to want the game to go on that long.
Oh yes, I think that's actually one of the biggest problems with Turf War. First, the matchmaking, and possibly that there's no way to prevent spawn camping or to knock off the other team, right? To knock out the other team.
It's incentivized by the game mode, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically it's not designed that way, which is a problem to a degree for sure. Which is why I guess that would be further stress on tournament organizers to make sure, which is probably impossible, to make sure the teams are balanced and everything, and the signs ups are proper. So that would definitely be a challenge. Otherwise, as you say, it could just discourage even more people.
And it's like, on one level, as a teacher, I look at that and I'm like, that would be a good, I think, kind of wake-up call for some players who, feel like, oh yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I'm really, knowledgeable about this game. I've played it for 10 whole hours, so, I'm an expert here. I think that a lot of people just don't understand how good people are at this game. Like, people don't understand how big the gap is. They can't visualize that. They feel like, oh yeah, well there must be someone who's better than Starburst, right? With all the people who play this game, no man. If there was someone who's better than Starburst, they'd have already beaten Starburst. Starburst does not lose. Like I cannot express just how good Starburst is. They are practicing for longer in the day than just about anybody is. Like, they have not lost to anybody in the West in a very long time. And if there were someone to step up and do this, they probably would have by now. There is no such person. And so, I run into that sort of ideology a lot of the time. And there's a part of me that's like, maybe that wake-up call is a good thing for a person. But it's also probably, realistically, something that is not going to bring that person back. I don't think that having that experience... It can be very
discouraging.
Right. I don't think that having that experience is going to change anybody's mind about whether they want to be a part of competitive Splatoon. I think the people who are going to want to be a part of competitive Splatoon are going to already want to be that and are going to be willing to lose to get there. And I think it's very, honorable and good to be willing to lose and to learn from it in order to get there. But that's something that, I don't think specifically losing in a Turf War tournament versus losing in another ranked tournament is going to make you more open to that experience.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I also mostly, I think, was trying to point at, do you think organizing more Turf War tournaments just overall would open the gates, the floodgates, so to say, to more people potentially, right?
Sorry, what was the question?
I
was distracted by something in chat.
It's okay. So basically, the question was that I was pointing that if there were more Turf War tournaments, for example, do you think it would actually build more interest, or basically, could you reach more people that way to be interested in the competitive scene, right? Not necessarily how good the tournaments are, just simply also including that game mode overall and trying to reach out a certain part of the community. Or do you think there's no connection? If someone's interested in competitive, they're already looking into the competitive scene and anarchy battles, and they're not in their corner with Turf War. It's do you think that could actually reach more people, or you don't think there's a section of the player base who could be potentially interested, but they're just not reached out to?
I think, thinking from the perspective of someone who only wants to play Turf War, I think that the best way to reach out to them would be specifically a Turf War only tournament. And so, if you include Turf War, but then say, oh, but we're also playing these other modes, that causes the same issue for them, I feel, that, there's going to be a mode that they're comfortable with, but there are going to be a lot of other modes that they're not going to be.
Right.
So I don't know that is really going to make someone more likely to want to be there. Because they're, the thing that they're worried about is, oh, there's this entire game mode that I just don't play, or like have never played and don't know how to play. And so it won't be a real test of what I can do, or what I'm, familiar with, or what I like playing. Because, like, somebody who's interested in playing all of the ranked modes, they're interested in finding out who's the best. So they don't care what mode they're playing as long as that mode is the one that proves that they're the best. So for them, we can play, whatever modes there are that we think have a really good way of measuring that. For Turf War enthusiasts, they're playing it for, they're trying to play Turf War for different reasons. They're not trying to prove that they're the best, they're trying to play the game in a way that's most fun for them, and so the way to cater to them would be to play the tournament in that specific way.
Yes. Right. Well, that's interesting. Because to a degree, I agree with that. Maybe I'm just naive there, where maybe there are some people who are just very stubborn and they play in their little bubble, and that maybe like exposing those people could actually build some interest that was not there before. But maybe I'm just very naive with that.
It's like, how would running a tournament for Turf War plus other ranked modes, like, how would that change their response, do you think, compared to the tournaments that already exist? Like, the Nintendo tournaments, for example. Nintendo tournaments start in Turf War, and then the late phases go into ranked. And I'm not, a huge fan of that, but, like, we get more... Nintendo tournaments aren't a great example, because with Nintendo, they have, an actual marketing department that's involved with getting the word out about those. So we just see bigger numbers in those because it's the official Nintendo tournament. But in terms of, other competitive tournaments that might run this, like, how is adding Turf War to it going to, like, improve the visibility of that tournament to those players? Or do you think they're going to see the tournament because it's got Turf War in it? Do you think, like, they're more likely to play in it once they hear that it's got the Turf War, even though it's got the other modes?
Well, that's an interesting question. I from my perspective, I think it's mostly that, just like in my case, I'm not sure if in your case, do you have a preference actually for anarchy modes, like, where you don't really care?
A preference for, like,
as in, like, which one you like
four?
to play? The game modes.
I like all of them and want to play a variety of them, because playing just one of them would get tiring. But if I had to choose a favorite, I'd probably say Clan Blitz.
Like, from that point of view, what I mean is not necessarily like one person just only playing Turf War, because that's not going to help anyone really. Though Turf War only tournaments could be one thing. But basically, like, what if a person's, that's their favorite mode? And what I mean is, if there were more tournaments for, let's say, Turf War, then they could be exposed to a competitive experience that they might otherwise are not open to or not interested out of whatever reason. And because they do like Turf War, they would experience this competitive tournament and the scene, and maybe that would actually build some kind of interest, like, okay, I kind of want to do more of this, and maybe in different modes as well.
There would be a negative response from some players, both casual and competitive, in that, because there's this, perception, which I think is somewhat deserved, that Turf War is a bit less of a competitive mode, that this tournament is therefore a bit less of a competitive tournament. And there's not necessarily a problem with the tournament being less competitive, if that's by design. That can, be helpful in a way. But I also just wonder, like, would that have a negative impact on the attendance of that tournament from other parts of the community? Would it feel really small and really, underattended because of, that aspect of it? And people not taking it as seriously. Because, like, at least with the Nintendo tournament, that's the official Nintendo tournament, and that's a reason that it has, you know, some legs as a competitive event. Like, people are interested in winning it for that reason. They're going to get officially recognized by Nintendo that they are the best at their game. You know, that means something, even if, you know, as a competitive player, I look at those tournaments and say those are the absolute least important tournaments of that size that we've ever run. And I say we've ever run, like, it is Splatoon competitive community members that are running them. Like, at the end of the day, Nintendo outsources. It's not them that actually have the tournament organizing experience. But with these kinds of tournaments, it would just be like a little casual thing, which has its benefits, but also, how does that little casual thing get the attention of those players then? Because it doesn't have Nintendo marketing. It doesn't have, you know, the competitive community behind it nearly as much, because it's more of a... You have to have, like, a tournament organizer who is willing to spend some time on that sort of community building, primarily, that's their number one goal with what they're trying to do. And there are only so many tournament organizers and so many, especially event production people, in the scene. And I think a lot of them are more interested in trying to build up that sense of competitive integrity around their brand than they are that sense of casual fun. Now, is there some value to the casual fun aspect? Absolutely. I don't know that that's what the tournament organizers are most interested in, though. I don't know that that's what they got into the scene to be able to accomplish. And so I don't know how much of a priority it is for them to maybe be trying to catch those few stragglers of Turf War only players, if, you know, they're going to be getting very few of them anyway, and a lot of them might still respond to a normally run tournament if they just are able to cope with the fact that, yeah, you're going to have to play ranked modes.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, I think, because it might be just too late even to start that, right? Because as you said, in the West especially, there's already been a culture built around this, that Turf War is considered more casual and less serious, which in itself could be questioned, like, if that went right or not. So, like, it might be too hard to build anything up, because now there's no interest. If anyone's interested, then they're already doing the other modes, and then it would be a very slow process of building it up, even though I think it has potential, actually.
And I will say, I do think that tournament organizers have more control over that than we think it does, because I saw that sort of 180 happen with wobbling. Like, once that one major tournament ran it, you know, made the brave decision to do so, the entire community just kind of adopted it widespread afterwards. So I do think that, you know, you're right that can actually probably change, but I'm sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to say that before I forgot.
Oh, no, I agree, and that's a good point. And I'm also... I have a section about this, basically, that's just probably how the Western community evolved, because also, not just the tournament, but also the content creation-wise, this whole title for Turf War somewhat built up, right? Like, Turf War is bad, Turf War is not that serious, Turf War is not a good competitive mode. Only the last 30 seconds matter, nothing else you do, and etc. And I personally don't disagree with the last 30 seconds part, like it's a big oversimplification of the game mode. But basically, it also just strongly built this sense in the community that that's how it is, and it's not worth really talking more about it, right? Because, well, you know, that's what everyone says too.
I think, yeah, that, like, the perception can change, but I also think that there needs to be a reason for it to change. Because Turf War, you know, can be played competitively, and you will get a pretty good sense of which team is better from it. You know, better than you would doing a lot of other things. You know, obviously, there are only so many game modes, but, like, if we were trying to test which team is better at PvP by having them play Salmon Run, I would say that that would be worse, because they're not actually competing against other teams. And, you know, the Salmon do not behave the same way that human players do. They're two different skill sets. And vice versa, you know, like, I remember watching in Genesis 7 the Salmon Run competition that they had there. And the players that are in the top of the Salmon Run competition are completely different players from the ones who are, you know, winning the tournament. in the PvP modes. So for, there are different skill sets that are, considered valid and are competed over in this community. I just think that Turf War is similar enough to the ranked modes, but worse enough than the ranked modes that I'm not really interested in finding out who's the best at Turf War as much as I am interested in finding out who's the best at the other modes.
I see.
So, like, if I, as a tournament organizer, believed in Turf War as a competitive game mode and thought that it's being overlooked, I would run it more. And if, as a, caster, I believed in Turf War tournaments, I would advocate for them on the mic, and I would, be the first person to volunteer to go and cast them. If I were a player who believed in Turf War tournaments, I would vote by joining in and participating in one. But because I have this problem with it, I am happy with having it less, because what I'm most interested in, again, is the competitive integrity of the tournaments that I play in. So I think there's a little bit of supply and demand going on there, and not just that, we haven't given it a fair shake.
Yeah, right. Definitely. And that's actually what I was trying to point towards as well. Like, do you think that's just how basically the scene developed in the West compared to Japan? And that's just how it is. Like, that's how the community is. They have developed different interests, for example. Because before you answer, I also asked Norisuke-san what he thinks is the biggest difference between Western and Japanese turf war scene, and how they think it could be more interesting over here. And they answered that they think the problem with how Western teams think about turf war is that they're trying to execute a strategy for the last 30 seconds, but sometimes the enemy knocks them down at the wrong time. At such time, I feel there are more options for how to win from here in Japan than in the West. For example, they can go into the enemy's camp, enemy's base, and paint more turf, or they can try to beat the enemy team in another team fight, or they can calmly work together with their allies again, etc. Which I feel they're pointing towards that they're not necessarily planning around the last 30 or 15 seconds, but potentially even maybe a little bit earlier, etc. And I'm curious if you think that's just a different community perspective and how it evolved. Could strategies actually change over here, or that's just a different take on the mode, and simply turf war is not desirable over here that much competitively?
I think that, if it sounds to me like what he's saying is that we're too rigidly planning specifically for the last 30 seconds, and that if something happens in the last 45 seconds, that still matters. If something happens in the last 20 seconds, that still matters. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to argue that something happens 2 minutes from the end of the game really matters that much with regard to what the map looks like at the very end. Because you look at the Japanese teams, and what are they doing in the first 30 seconds, 45 seconds or so? They've got 2 people back in their base that are painting the whole thing up, because this period of time doesn't matter as much. And if if the opponents try to take mid, okay, fine. All we have to do is get specials, and we're going to have those because we're painting a lot, and we're going to be able to force them back out. So that sounds like a tactical difference that doesn't, to me, change the overall theory that, the problem with the mode, that, okay, maybe it's not exactly the last 30 seconds, it is still sometime after, the 1 minute mark at the end of the game.
Yes. Like the final sequence, basically.
Right. And the fact that it comes down to that and not anything that happened in the first 2 minutes is frustrating.
Yeah. Which is why competitively I know a lot of players just don't like it. Like, you're painting for 2 minutes and then you have a fight at the end, oh, how exciting, right? And I totally get that. I totally get that, really. I was mainly trying to play devil's advocate here, how it could be improved. And I'm actually curious, like, if you would try to make Turf War more fun, even competitive, or let's say you were charged. This is the hard question, I know, so take it just with a grain of salt. If you were charged with a task that you need to implement Turf War as a competitive mode, like in an Anarchy game mode, what would you change? In simple points, maybe, that first comes to mind.
One idea would be to basically treat the entire map like a splat zone. So, at a certain, if you hit, the danger line, let's say, then maybe from there your team starts scoring, and so the game does become about like who is able to control more of the map for more of the time.
That's actually a pretty interesting one.
And that way, all that changes is that now there's a mercy rule. Now there is pressure on you to actually, not lose control in the middle of the game, because in Turf War, it's fine. We'll just get it back in the last 45. Whereas in this mode, no, like this is actually serious. We need to stop them now from being able to do this to us. And that, still makes those painting weapons valuable because they are needed more than ever to be able to paint the objective. But it would also take away this issue of the game design that you can't gain an advantage by gaining an advantage.
Yeah, right. So, and in that case, like, do you think there should be anything done about spawn camping, in fact? Or that's like a matter of map design rather than problem with the mode?
By the time you're getting in to be able to spawn camp them, you're probably already scoring and in the lead, just like you are in any of the other
guess.
It would be the same sort of situation as in splat zones. Like, if you win like 2 team fights pretty cleanly in splat zones, you probably win the game. So you don't really have that much time to even get into their spawn. You're maybe in their spawn in the last 15 seconds if you're really knocking them out that fast, but the game is gonna end, is the point.
Yeah. I see. Like, that would actually be interesting. So basically it would be a large scale splat zones, but then you could question, like, is it really worth it? We already have splat zones. Though I actually would love to see how that would work.
By the way, I know this is like really late, but I'd like to thank Kyo, not Kyo from like FT Win fame, KEYOUGH, for the raid from earlier. I know one of my students, one of the people who's been taking lessons from me, is a big fan of the stream, so happy to see y'all over here.
Yay, Raiders! Well, with that said, though, I'm quite interested. Do you think Nintendo actually cares how we look at Turf War? Do you think, like, if Turf War was liked more, there would be more Nintendo-sponsored events?
No.
Like, that's very theoretical at all. Yeah, like this, or they would just be Nintendo.
I do not think that Nintendo... So, there are definitely people at Nintendo who care about competitive play. Like, there are people there who see the community and the value that it can bring and want it to be bigger and want to be able to do initiatives for it. The problem is that they have to convince very old executives and shareholders that they should care about this, which is like, how do you convince someone to care about other people and what they want, especially when it's your money that's being used for it? I think that, that is a very good thing to care about, and I think that there's a lot of very good community building. There's a lot of, positive relationships that can come from playing a competitive game together, and if they took full responsibility for that space and made it something that's positive, that's more accessible to the family, that's more moderated, there's a lot of good that they can provide in just making people's lives better. But they are a company, and I think that their actions have shown that profit motive is the primary thing that is moving the needle. that they see their competitive initiatives as advertisements for their products, and that they will only run a tournament in a way that they think will be palatable to a casual audience, because the casual audience is bigger and therefore they're making more money from them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. That's why I was thinking, like, if there's any kind of connection or positive move we can do from the fact that there's a large casual part of the community present in Splatoon. So like, how could through turf wars the competitive scene benefit from all that? But it would be actually then pretty hard, as you said, to have any kind of conversion between that, because if someone's already interested, then they're already present to a degree, which is interesting. And we got to the final point that I wanted to talk about, and I'm actually really thank you so much for this talk, because there's been a lot of interesting things you said as well that even opened my eyes on certain things versus casual versus competitive, like, that really matter, like the integrity that maybe even if turf war, let's say, would make Splatoon somewhat more popular, if it wouldn't even matter, because from the point of view of the competitive integrity, it might damage the scene more than actually benefit it, which is really important.
Yeah, and like, I don't think that running any tournaments with turf war would damage the scene, but I definitely think that if you're trying to decide who's the best, and that's your goal, which should be the goal at least a lot of the time in a competitive scene, you've got to adjust things. It's just like how with competitive Smash. In competitive Smash, there are like 5 stages that are legal. Usually more like 6 or 7 these days, but like that's about it. That's all that we want to play on, because you're not going to determine who's the best by playing the Great Cave Offensive. Holy moly. That was loud. Hello?
What happened?
There was a big buzzing noise, and I don't know where it came from.
It might have been from me. I heard a big noise from my PC. I hope everything is okay. Is everything working properly now?
Sorry about that, folks. I think everybody's able to hear us. Say something real quick.
Hello?
Yeah,
hello?
You're showing up on Discord.
I'm not sure if it was actually from me. I don't know. It could have been, though.
Yeah, sorry for the very large B there, chat, but anyway.
Excuse me, everyone, if it was from me. I actually don't know. It never happened before.
Yeah, I should have checked to see if it was showing up on the Discord overlay to see if that was on your end. But it sounds like we're fine now.
Hopefully it's gone. Yeah, hopefully it's gone. From going over from there, at the beginning I said that I think the game is lacking a little bit in content, at least for turf war, at least to help the casual community, which I would like to help a little bit more of it. And I'm quite curious about your opinion. Like, do you think there's actually room for valuable content to be created around turf war?
Oh, absolutely. I think that studying turf war is a very interesting way to learn more about the game, because it's like, you know more about the game if you can predict how a game mode would go that you haven't played as much, right? Like, if even if you're not interested in playing it that way, it can be a good thought exercise for figuring out, like, okay, but how would it play? Because it lets you test assumptions that you can bring into other game modes or other ways of playing the game, where it will actually be helpful. So, like, to think, like, okay, in turf war, for example, to use an example we've used earlier, is it really more helpful to be getting, 1400p instead of 1200p if I'm exchanging that for not being able to splat anybody?
Yeah.
Like, that tells you a lot about the game, even in other game modes. That, like, if I challenge your idea that the Aerospray is a great weapon for turf war, then what does that tell you about what it's like in other modes,
Yeah.
So, I think there is a lot to be learned from it, and I have actually made videos on that subject for that reason, that I think that there is value in thinking about the game in other ways than we currently play it. It's important to have a bit of an imagination. It's important to try other things out. It's important to think like, okay, like, this is the way things are. Is this the way that it's best for things to be? And that's why, you know, conversations like this are really valuable, because they challenge our assumptions like, okay, like, is Turf War really anti-competitive, though? Because if we were to decide, you know, maybe there is something to this, maybe there is something that we haven't considered here and we should try it, that's valuable for us to know. But even if we decide otherwise, I still think there's something to learn from it.
Which is awesome to hear, at least, because really, I think there's actually a huge gap in the community, right? Like, I don't see that much Turf War content usually created, because that's probably also for the same reason, like, you know, the Turf War has some of these stigmas, so there's probably no interest in it. Though I do think there would be a lot of interest in Turf War content, if anything, for the casual community as well, that they would enjoy.
See, here's the angle I come at this from, and maybe this will, you know, maybe this is a perspective you haven't thought of for why, you know, we might make content the way we do. Like, if I'm trying to make content to make someone a better Splatoon player, right? If I'm trying to help them get better at the game to improve, which is, you know, one of the goals of the channel for the purpose of, you know, helping people become better people in general, but if I want to create this crucible for people to test themselves in, and to give them the tools that they need to test themselves in it, the resources, like, here is what you need to know, now go and do it, then it's less valuable for me to focus on a mode which is less of a crucible for them to do that. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes,
like,
absolutely.
If I'm trying to create this for the sake of improvement, then I'm not going to focus on Turf War as much, and I'm only going to focus on it insofar as I think it applies. Whereas if I were doing this for the clicks, then yeah, I would definitely be catering more to the casual audience. Competitive Splatoon is a niche that is a lot smaller than casual Splatoon, and you know, you can go and find so many examples of other YouTubers who are in that one instead.
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't try to come up that way, like why you're not creating. That's obviously,
no.
And I understand it.
But like, I think
I mostly
that
meant, like,
my mindset on that though might be illustrative of other mindsets of competitive Splatoon players.
Oh, definitely. Because I just meant in general, like, it's interesting that there's somewhat of a gap in the community. Like, I actually don't see that many people do that kind of content.
The people who grind Turf War are less likely to know how to play it at top level, and the people who are capable of playing it at top level are less likely to be interested in making the content about it.
Yes, that's actually pretty funny, because that's the same thing in Salmon Run, that we have so many resources about Salmon Run, but there's not necessarily an interest to make the content for it. It's there actually in text format, and we have amazing creators and amazing pros for Salmon Run, but there's not necessarily interest to tone it down for the casual player base to get into Salmon Run more. So I can definitely see that point of view.
It's an old example. It's what I call the old commentator's curse, which is the people who are most capable, most qualified to be on the mic for top 8 of a major are the players who are most likely to be competing in top 8 at that major, right?
Yes,
the people who know the most are also busiest with doing it, and so they have less time to actually be back and creating.
Exactly, basically. And that's where I think that's how I got into Splatoon as well, that I just think it's actually fun to try to bridge the gap, right? And to a degree, that's what you're doing as well. I think that you're trying to get beginner competitive players to get better and reach higher levels and bridge the gap of how to do that. And I think that's really fun. And to a degree, that's also how I look at my content. It's just, I think it's fun to do it. It's fun to try to bridge those gaps and see the results. Though I have a feeling with Turf War it's gonna be somewhat hard, because Turf War has so many preconceptions already and it's hard to reach out. Like I made a turf war guide recently where I was trying to introduce more higher levels and how it's done in tournaments, and there were mixed results to it at least, because of how turf war is perceived in casual matches or in Splatfest, etc. And and people are not necessarily open to different perspectives there, which is like really hard, I think, to fight. Um, and to a degree, I listened to your podcast with Magic, and I really liked what you said that content creators have immense responsibility, and I do agree about what they say and how things, how they convey things to their communities, and from that point of view, it's very interesting also how communities form and how also Splatoon is. That I think from a content creation point of view, Splatoon is relatively small. Like, I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
Agree.
That, like, relatively speaking, the people who are creating content to larger audiences, because we have lots of amazing smaller audience creators too, but the people who reach larger audiences are very few. And because of that, I feel there are bubbles in the community. And just like you said, that you hate when, or maybe this is a strong word, you dislike when
Yeah.
people watch your videos and they take your words to use it against other people, or to use your reasonings without proper context to discourage people from playing Splatoon, let's say because of bad maps, etc. And I think to a degree we see it now as well with the new map released. But what do you think overall? I blabbered way too long about this. Let me try to sum up what I mean by all of this. What do you think about basically how the community perceives content creators and their opinions on certain matters? For example, from my point of view, I was a little bit discouraged from making turf war content because, let's say, people are going to use some of the negative competitive viewpoint against turf war to try to fight strategies or even different perspectives to what they already think is the truth. Turf war. That was a terrible sentence, but I hope I came through.
Yeah. I think that if what you are going to say is informed, and you are, providing information that is correct, that there can be as many 13-year-olds in your comment section who try to L+ ratio you out of existence, but nobody's going to really care about what they think. Like, if you're making something that is actually informative, if you're making something that is helpful, then that's of value to people. And the people who are saying, oh, this isn't of value to you, or like trying to, meme on you or something like that, well, at least they're increasing engagement on your video.
Yeah, I guess.
And like, because like, if, I, again, have made content about Turf War before, and I've talked about what I think, is the best strategy in Turf War, and that actually got a lot of attention. Like, that was a very successful video, even though I don't stand as much by a lot of what I said in it now. And I think that that's all you really need. You need, to have an honest conversation, and if you're willing to go and talk about Turf War strategy, and that's something that you're interested in talking about, there's something of value to talk about, because people will feed off of your passion, whatever it is that you care about. If you can communicate that effectively in a video, hell, people are going to watch your video even if they don't play Splatoon 3. That's something I found out on TikTok, actually. There are a lot of people who are watching Squid School TikToks that have never bought the game and never plan to. And they just
that's interesting.
They just like the videos. So, like, don't think that, just because people are going to have negative preconceptions about Turf War, that you can't have honest discussions about it. Because I've had those honest discussions about it, and I didn't get backlash to the extent that I probably should have, honestly, about the accuracy of what I said. That's another thing. Like, people will always criticize you, but for the wrong thing. You will have done something wrong. You will have said something that was not true, but they won't find that thing. They'll find something else that you said right and criticize you for that instead. That is the content creator's dilemma. You will get nothing but adulation for saying the wrong thing, but you will, you'll say one thing that they'll latch onto that you're actually correct about, and that is what they will dislike. So just do whatever you think is good. Do whatever you think is providing valuable information to people. And if you do that, people will find you, and you will have an audience for it.
That's actually a fantastic advice. Like, thank you. And I think for anyone else who's interested in content creation, that's amazing advice, because that's all you should think about. What should matter. Though, like, sometimes it is definitely hard to take criticism. Like, that's something everyone has to get used to. And then decide what is positive and what is negative, right? Like, what's tearing you down and what is actually something you should consider. And from the other thing I tried to point at, what do you think about the part of the community that are a little bit overzealous and don't necessarily or rather, like, people who are a little bit overzealous and fans of the very few content creators that we have, and potentially spread the hot takes that I think you also mentioned at one of your videos that aren't necessarily constructive to the community or aren't necessarily true, and might actually damage some public opinions of other people who then start the dogpiling, etc., etc. How do you think overall the community and also content creators can we actually do something against that? Like, is it something you think we can do, or that's just how it is?
There are, people in the community who have positions of authority, who are respected. They can speak out about that and definitely do a lot to minimize that behavior, which is what I try to do with the videos where I talk about them. Now, there is a cultural problem with the way that we use the internet that leads us to that sort of behavior, even in other venues outside of competitive Splatoon. There's a whole lot more that I could talk about with internet media literacy, and how we're not taught internet etiquette in English classes because the English teachers don't know it better than we do, right? So it's very easy to be, 13 years old, the dumbest part of everybody's life, the part that everyone looks back on later and regrets. If you're 13, I'm sorry, but it will happen to you, and you will agree with me. People will, be of that age and, have that sort of behavior pattern because people at that age tend to be fairly conformist. They tend to do what their friends do, and they haven't got the life experience to question it yet, and so, any authority is good authority to them, which is how you get figures like, the grifters who capitalize on those people, the Andrew Tates of the world. But if we teach kids to just be moderate in their opinions, to be careful about criticizing people online, if we teach them about echo chambers, if we teach them about the danger of over-repeating a meme, even if it just makes the meme less funny, then, we're doing what we can as a culture to help fend off that behavior. Because that's not just a Splatoon thing at all. That is something we can address using Splatoon, but it's not something that is exclusive to Splatoon, and it's something that, we can teach here, but then we need to export to the rest of society somehow.
Yes.
And that's an interesting problem that I do also think about, but it's probably outside the scope of this stream.
Yeah, like it's definitely. I think it's a little bit stronger Splatoon, if I may, only because of the connection I made that the people with the larger influence are less in Splatoon than other places.
So it's more centralized on those people.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. And like there's less clash of opinions and perspectives, right? Like if, let's say, X says something, then there's not exactly an opposition to that, right? Like then
I think that on the line, though, that sort of thing forms in the form of an echo chamber, because there are, you know, many, say, political opinions out there. But the two that you're going to hear in, say, the United States' system are the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And it's very easy to only hear people who agree with you. And that's something we found out about Facebook, you know, a few years back, that like, wait,
yes.
there are people who are not being exposed to all of the other opinions that there are, despite the fact that they exist and are vocal, because the algorithms are pushing people away from them. So I think that's a challenge we would have, even if we even if we had more commentators with more varied opinions. I think we would still get that polarization right now, and that's something that the world in general, society at large, is struggling to deal with right now.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting take, and it's also the negatives of global social media. It's just something I think no one could predict. But yeah, that's another topic, and
there are always
going
to be growing pains with new technologies like that. There are always going to be evils that arise as a result of even the goods that we come up with it. You know, I'm not trying to condemn the internet wholesale or anything like that, but we need to learn about the dangers of it as quickly as we possibly can and start passing on what we know to younger people so that they don't make the same mistakes with that tool that we did. You know, once we learn, oh wait, it's unsafe to design this system in this way, then we immediately need to be making permanent all of the changes we need to make to keep it safe for everybody else.
Yes, I agree with that. Like, I usually think about this quite a lot because it's quite an interesting topic, I have to say. I will definitely want to chat with you about this at some point.
Yeah, sure.
But thank you so much, Jem, for this quite long talk overall. It was very insightful, and actually, as I said earlier, it opened my eyes as well to certain parts that I didn't think of. Especially from tournament organization and, as you said, from competitive integrity point of view, which I think is like a really interesting topic and something everyone can benefit from understanding. So thank you so very much for this talk.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you being here, and to you know, everybody who is here to see Hazmy, hello. Thank you for being here as well. Be happy to talk with you again sometime, you know, on stream or otherwise, because this is a good conversation, and I appreciate the, you know, the perspective you're bringing with regard to growing the scene. You know, anybody who's trying to grow the Splatoon 3 scene is a friend of mine, so definitely don't be a stranger.
Thank you very much, and I would love to talk more as well. I do feel a lot of the points that you said are definitely true. And I'm actually hoping that maybe in the future we're gonna see some changes to Turf War, and perhaps Nintendo might try to balance it more. Who knows? Maybe one day we're gonna have a ranked mode of Turf War. But until then, I guess all we can do is try to prepare better for Splatfest so we don't get spawn camped. I'll try to do my best.
All right, do your best unless you're not on my team. Then, you know,
yes.
take it easy.
Oh yes, exactly. But thank you so very much, and thank you everyone as well who joined. Before I would go though, I would like to ask you, Jem, to introduce yourself to my community when I post this conversation. How can they find you? What can you help you out with?
Absolutely. So I am Jem. I run a channel called Squid School, or a brand, I should say, called Squid School, because it's more than just one channel. There's a YouTube, there's a TikTok channel, there is the Twitch stream, there's a Discord server, Twitter account. I have a Metafy if you want private lessons. I have a Patreon if you want to support me. Whole bunch of different stuff, and I've got a link tree that I can give to Hazmy to promote with. But my goal is to help people become better kids and better squids, to become better at Splatoon 3, and in doing so, to maybe better themselves a little bit along the way.
That's fantastic, and you're doing a great job with it, if I may say.
Thank you.
I try to follow your videos as much as I can, and I think what I admire the most is that you're trying to not only teach people to be better at the game, but to stay humble and open, which I think is so important. So thank you very much for everything you do. It's really amazing.
Absolutely, and thank you for coming on again.
Thank you for the time. Really, it was fantastic. Thank you so much, and everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for coming by.
And Jem has a cat named Romeo. Yes, I guess that's important too. Important qualifications. Does all of these things. Has cat. Jules is like, wait, move the has cat up to the top of the list. That's important. Oh my goodness. Trans rights and sub to Gem. Hell yeah. Anyway, it's time for us to get going on the the coaching portion of the stream here. There is we're a little bit behind a bit, to be honest, right now. I need to get the folks who are going to be here with us into the Discord call. And I also need to grab some food, because I'm hungry. So I'm going to take just a second to message those folks and get them in here if we can. Let's see here. Okay, I love how on Discord, when you just, like, type in the name of the account that you're looking for the DMs for, doesn't always show up. It's like, we have a conversation. We talked before. Why can I not search it? Thank you so much for the raid. It's Ahmed. Welcome, everybody. And also, I did miss this earlier, and I feel bad about it. Thank you so much for the gifted memberships, Anime Hero, and also the donation. Gem and Hazmy Big Run collab. Hazmy would definitely be dragging me so hard through that, because I am not anywhere near as good at Salmon Run. But that could be fun. Let's just see here if I can find them from here. Yes, I can. And now I can click. Oh my god. And also, when you search someone on a Discord server in certain ways, they don't show up in a way that you can find them and message them. This makes my job harder sometimes. Okay. And then Ane as well. I think I saw Ane in chat, so Ane should be available. But hop in, excuse me, waiting room VC. Excuse me. There's Zelamu. Hello there, Zelamu.
Hello. Just call me X.
X, you got it. And then we should have Ane here soon. Ane was in turf earlier, yeah. So I have to imagine they're you know, not far behind. There's Ane. So Ane is now here, and then that one crazy Adrestian dude is the other one that we're waiting on. Haven't seen a message back from them yet, but I'm going to take just a second to go and, like I said, grab something to eat. Devi, if you want to hop in here and be our fourth for the time being, would be happy to have you. Aye, says Devi. All right, awesome. Be right back, everybody. I'm gonna go grab something to nom on. What is for dinner? So the mistake that you made there is assuming that this is dinner.
Everyone now grading Pro Chera. Good job, chat. Making Pro Chera feel so welcomed.
Alrighty. So, I've got the food getting started. Don't worry, my setup is actually very near the kitchen, so I can, hear the stove and stuff like that. So I'll hear when water's boiling and stuff like that. I'll be able to go attend to it. I'm not gonna burn my house down.
What is your variation of food?
I'm probably just gonna do some pasta for now.
Good old classic.
I ended up getting an extra box of HelloFresh beyond what I meant to. So dinner is definitely going to be something from them, but I don't have time to cook right now. So I'm just going to make some quick pasta for now and then do dinner a little bit later.
An extra box that you meant to... No, you totally meant to get it.
There's only so much food that a man can eat, Debbie.
No.
I disagree.
It's
You
not
can
like
always
have to
push
have
your
it
limit.
all at once.
all right. Let me get Ane was able to join off me, right? Ane was at least able to join off of you, so I think Ane's already got me added and stuff. But I'll give X my friend code for X to be able to add me, and also the password that we're going to be using.
Thank you.
And I will DM that to Ane and Debbie as well.
Jim, did you see that room codes are now going to be a thing?
Yes, I did, and that is an excellent thing. It's about time.
Is it gonna work for privates?
Yep.
Indeed.
You will be able to create a lobby that someone will be able to join without having to be added as a friend. This is so huge for just being able to play with people as a streamer, with my friend list not being overburdened. I'm going to be able to just be like...
Being captain of 4 years, having a consistent full friends list because there's so many comp teams.
Yep. It's a lot. So, let me know when you have sent off the friend request X, and I will go and attend to it.
It's
Oh, okay.
I will make the room with the passcode in the meantime.
Is that a Fire Emblem character?
Yes, it is. Just got it the other day.
I don't think it's 3 houses. Engage, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
To be honest, I'm not actually that far in
I
it.
played way too much of 3 houses to not be recognizing this person.
Oh, never
Well,
mind. I won't
yeah.
have the friend code.
I've a lot of time in 3 hours. I just got engaged. I just thought he was cool.
CPM boosting. Room is going up.
Just let me deal with friends with suffering as well for a second.
So X, I think it said you were a Tri-Slosher player in your...
I am indeed.
Okay, and then... I don't... What does Ane normally play? Because I think there were a bunch of like meme picks going on in Turf War, so I don't know if that's what they would normally use.
I was trying to pick weapons with Booyah Bomb because I'm like, if I get wins, it goes towards my gold badge. And then I kind of was like, okay, I'll use something else.
I've also been playing T-Tech and Stamper just because I like the run in and murder everyone strat.
Ane, what do you play since you have it open in DMs with me? I can just relay. I'm also trying to add you here.
Oh, okay. Ane, are you adding Ane? Right? I just got the message from Ane.
I got it
okay.
just now.
Sorry,
It's
Ane, for missing
easier,
your
but not
response.
today.
Ane did not join off of me, nor did they join off of Devi, so we need to...
Oh no, I got it. So like,
Yeah.
I realized that no one had the friend code because we were gonna try to get friend codes earlier for the turf thing, and I'm like, my friends list is full, so I just went and dealt with friends list suffering, and just searched with recently played user.
Good question, Ocarina Pen. How did you put the question mark in there? Okay, Stamper. All right. Go with this. Zones Museum in Sturgeon.
You ball.
I'm trying to think if I put on the bold build or the normal build. I'll put on the bold build.
Dropping right?
Yep.
I got you.
The bold build equals, I don't have stealth jump, but I'm running object shredder, comeback. So,
Oh,
Oh wait, this is a museum in Sturgeon. I actually would rather run 52 on this, but we'll run the T-Tech for now, and then
I
switch
mean-
over to that next game.
it is, okay. So we're hitting nope after this.
Oh shoot. At this point, I'm just gonna run T-Tech.
Don't forget about the cat! I mean, the box.
I mean, I'm sure that Jules would be happy if I did forget about the cat, but
Car.
the car, the car. Beep beep.
Two on top mid already.
One in mid. Nice, thank you. Ah, one behind me. What the
Another
heck?
Thank you. One more above me on the right.
Yep, I'm after him.
Yep. So
There we.
is,
They dropped
I-
left.
hey. Thanks, guys.
We don't have zone
You
yet.
got
There
that.
we go. Ooh, hello.
I'm in their. I'm in their walls.
Well, there's a vacuum behind us, but we're distracting it. Oh!
All right, I'm down.
Oh,
Just
I
you.
found
Just
the
you.
wall.
This tragedy!
I thought I was by the wall.
That might get rolled. Nope, 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 nope. Not today, sirs. Oh, never
So
mind.
I didn't quite have enough momentum to make the jump. We're gonna try that one more time, but with it painted better.
You think I'm not there.
There we go. There we go.
Don't worry, I'm making my way back. I should have said downtown.
Yeah, I was expecting that, honestly.
I'm so bad at references. Oh, I traded.
Defect.
There's two jumping to the back of zone.
Got
Got
well, I
one.
will be over on that back side of zone here shortly. They're on the left. I ran out of ink. Oh, there's
Twice.
another one on me.
Traded him.
There's another one.
One my ouch. Nice.
Let's just keep this here and put this
Ooh,
here
tree.
because people are gonna drop.
Rollers on right.
Yep,
And
I'm
the
being
tree.
bursted.
Oh,
Oh, I
my
got it.
God.
Oh, okay.
T-Tech just took zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know I'm here. However,
There was,
I beat them anyway.
More than one person standing where I was standing. That was a big oof.
All right, well we've got the zone back.
Yep. I'm just gonna stay over here. They
Wanna
don't
back a
seem
zone?
to like me on this side.
Got him.
Top right. Hello, Carbon. You wanna fight? No, you do not.
I'm sure I did ledge.
Strike incoming paint zone.
Painting through it.
Watch out.
I'm down on left zone.
Still one on the back.
Yep.
Yep.
See if
There
we
we
can go for
Paint
zone.
the zone.
It is. Hold it.
There we go.
Woo! Now hold it for lead, and we're good. I see Ane's already up there. There's someone behind us. Someone's on our side. Someone pulled a me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I'm
Well,
gonna
I'll
jet
just
them.
shark on the backside of our zone. They're on zone
There's
now.
a vacuum right. Oh, there's a vacuum right
Got
here.
him.
And a Carbon.
Got carbon, but I critted.
What the heck? They
Big swig's on
are.
right.
Don't
They
worry,
are all
I
over the
spotted
place, but
somebody on.
we got 'em anyway.
I spotted somebody on the zone.
That big swig was playing like a spat roller.
That was funny. I turned around like someone's on our plat. Oh my god, they pulled a me.
Yep.
Dude,
That was something that Debbie did to us in the Off the Dial tournament, Creator Clash. She got jumps in to our plat while we still had control of mid, and then flanked us from there.
Basically, I knew you guys were doing a zone retake, so I'm like, okay, if I can beat Barry's snipe and get over on your plat, Free jumps in for 2 frontliners who are respawning, and we can just take it from reverse. And it worked. We got a wipeout.
The water is boiling. I shall return in time.
I mean, I didn't get splatted by them, at least.
Hitting stop.
That's evil. I mean, sometimes you have to do things to reclaim the game, okay? And we got a wipeout from it, and it worked. I love how the commentator came into my chat after that play happened. It was just like, why? Why did you do this? How did that work so well? And I'm like, I'm just weird like that.
You're just playing Splatly, right? Acting like a
I was
Dapples.
playing heavy. People don't expect heavies to do that.
Yeah, I wonder why.
It wasn't even a flank, it was in plain sight, just above the frontliners' heads, but the Charger knew I was going. The Charger had a sight line on me. I'm surprised I didn't get sniped, actually.
They just let you walk in?
Well, what is it? I think Barry was recharging.
I am mostly in time.
So I gotta jump off.
Yeah, the scope and...
Two on
I
there.
went too close. The Hydra and the Charger are playing together. If you throw bombs up there, you might get them
No,
both.
I'm flanking that. Oh, they sniped.
No, you're not.
I got
I
sniped.
would throw a bomb there if I had a bomb.
They stopped looking at me, and so I was like, ooh, now I can sneak. But I could not sneak.
When one stops, the other will. That was a good Zuka.
It was actually just the Charger that knew I was there. I
Oh.
didn't see anything.
Well, the Charger's on the zone now, vacuuming. I can't do this. Never mind. Okay, so the Hydra and the Charger are literally playing hand in hand with specials and everything too.
I'm behind them.
The
Good.
Hydra retreated. You got him.
Oh, there's one on zone. They're still on zone.
Yeah, I'm not jumping that.
Nice try.
Careful, X. You're the only one up there yet right now. You're gonna be outnumbered for now.
There was paint behind me.
We gotta go for zone. We gotta go for zone.
I know. I'm trying to paint it the best I can.
Yeah, definitely.
There
Okay,
we go.
there's the cap. We can back off if
Left
we are
wing.
able to.
Left wing. There we go. I got him.
Nice.
Go like that. Bonk that. I'm gonna get booyah'd. Nope, zone's gonna get booyah'd. No, I still got. Fine, we're fine. We're living. Someone's on our snipe.
Yeah, they zooped me from behind on our
What?
snipe.
Yep.
We're dead.
How did they get there?
Hydra's on bottom left. They dropped.
Close to strike. Got
Oh,
strike.
someone's by me. Someone's by me on zone.
That's Hydra. Or that's CTech.
We get
Charger on left.
Right.
Weak. Nice.
Got him.
One more on left.
Okay.
Okay, you got him, I think.
Reclaim.
Yeah,
Oh, there's the one right in front of us. That's the Hydra.
Hydra down.
Nice.
Okay, Charger went top. The Charger
Got
and someone
C-Tech.
else went top left.
Yep, going after them from behind.
V shots on top left.
Forcing them down. Shot is zuking. Hydra's trying to protect.
Oh, that's a Charger shot. Try Slosher. Sorry, I can't think of your name. Do you mind playing below me?
Yeah,
Or,
sure.
like beside me?
On my ouch
Go for it.
one.
That way we both
And
don't
one on
die
snipe.
in the same spot.
Charger snipe.
Oh, I got hit by bomb.
I'm gonna get sniped probably. In range.
Good job holding zone. We should not have been
Charger
able to
on
do
the right,
that.
Great. They're looking at me.
I think
They're
we
vacking.
forced
They probably have zone cap here. Yep. We couldn't stop it. No. I'm alive.
That jump is scary, to say the least.
Yeah, don't. Traded one. Alright. Got them.
Okay. So
Loop on
there's
edge.
one trying to. Oh, who's on the zone?
Free shot. There's a
T-Tech's under bridge on the left here. I might get him. There
There were a
one. I'm
couple
gonna
on
get
left.
sniped in
Nice.
return? Question mark. Uh-oh.
Alright, we're close to lead.
Push on
Make
the
sure we
right-
keep zone.
Push on the right side afterwards.
Got
push
one.
on the right side.
right there.
Gem's alone in there. We need.
On ouch, weak. Coming in right.
Oh, heavy. Hydra's weak.
T-Tech is,
They fell.
off.
Oh no!
Keep zone, keep zone, keep zone.
I'm dead. On the left. There's two
Jump
on the
in,
left.
jump in.
Oh dear.
He goes.
Tri-Strike does not care about your ink,
no.
Vac.
Okay.
Charger knows I'm on the right. Anyone? Can anyone bomb? Oh no.
Oh. Yeah.
Strike the left side of zone. Charger right. Nice,
I
that's
got
two.
one. Right side, one more, and then one in the left wing. Look behind. Still in the left wing. They're stuck there.
We just gotta cap and then we win. There we go.
Yeah, it's a
Nice.
Hydra. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Whew.
I love how this is a thing.
I
Why do
was-
people keep devying them? At least that's a normal. See, if it was like their Hydra doing that, then yeah, it would be pulling at me.
I mean, they almost did. Like,
Really?
yeah, they were pushing up a little bit.
Oh, bravo to the Hydra. I'm gonna give that because they were. What is it? The Charger and the Hydra were playing hand in hand for most of that game. And speaking from experience, I hate that. I've reached verbhood.
Be right back.
Can't play Hydra like that. It takes a lot of practice.
Theoretically, you can. It's just generally.
Okay. The story of why I call Gem Jerry is for those who don't know, we were teammates for like 4 years basically, and one of our teammates, Cookie, who is still on the Grillers today with me, calls him Jerry, so that's just his nickname, and I'm Doobie, so we have Doobie and Jerry.
Question about
That's
Metafy.
done with
Is
HP.
team practice also open for solo players? Not that great. Ranked minimum, would love to play in sport anyway. I mean, there's what you would probably just get is a replay review then, because the team practice is for teams,
You can
and
push
that's
the
why
machine
it's
left
longer.
by jumping in there.
Yep, I got it. There's another jump actually. I've got that too.
And someone
No,
came on
no,
the
they had
bottom
drop
of
roller.
the Right? Question mark.
No, actually, I've got everything. We're good. We're good. It's almost a
Jen's
quad.
just in.
I'm finally down, but they're coming in from right.
I distracted them with a wave breaker.
Watch right.
Yep. Oh, they bubbled.
Got one.
The bubbles almost broke. Hi, roller. Oh, that's on my face! Okay.
I got one. Sure.
I was right in the dead center of that booyah. Holy. Uh-oh.
I got Junior.
Well, you got zone.
Okay.
I got the machine
that
for no
was-
reason.
Secured.
Uh-huh. Stats.
You got the machine for no... I'm pretty sure there was a reason.
Yeah, bigger number.
But yeah, Jerry was Cookie's nickname for me. He had a nickname like that for pretty much everyone. Wasn't that where Doovie came from?
Yes. It came from in there, too. I think it was at start it was like a misspell, and then and then people just started calling me Doovy. And
Because I know that he
Grillers
did this
chat.
for Sam, where Sam was sap because he was a poor sap.
yeah, toxic though.
I forget what toxic was.
Sam is toe sack.
Oh yeah. At a certain point, it just became like, let's mess up the name and it'll be funny. It's very much Zoomer humor.
Is Jerry spelled with a G or a J?
With a J.
Okay.
Sap, Jerry, and Doobie, my favorite team. Yeah, that's literally how it was.
Yep. Sap, Jerry, Doovie, and Tosak.
And then Nanga.
Yeah.
There are 2 heavies. Oh my gosh. Bring it.
Wait, wasn't it Snornga?
I mean, that too. There's like 3 for him.
One coming right
Nanga
from Fight
and
Club.
Snornga. I got one
Oh,
of
heavies on
them.
mine.
I got the Explo.
Well,
Got heavy left for you.
they did a squid roll, and I was like, huh, I hadn't considered that option. And then they fell off the cliff, and I was like, that's why I hadn't considered that option.
Eat a sprinkler. Sprinklers have been my lifesavers lately. I almost can't use a normal sub.
Questions. Do you have a P.O. box? And when is your birthday? Asking for a friend.
Watch over the top right. One of the
I do
splat
not
lines,
have
I
a
think the
P.O.
other's on the
box,
left.
and I also don't have a birthday. Sorry.
One of the splat links is on the left.
You just-
Ooh, hi. I don't have a charge. I need one.
Really?
Someone's by our spinner. Yep, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Got him.
Oh no, scary.
Never born, you hate to see it. Yeah, it was one of those wonderful life sort of scenarios.
I don't exist then.
Yep.
Anyway, why don't
Oh.
you go around into their pit and go from behind? The T-Tech's the only one who's gonna see you.
Alright.
Got one.
Oh, they got both of us.
Yeah.
Oh, and I did make it. Never mind, it worked. Yes, let's go.
What?
I thought Annie
They don't
was
know.
beside me, but
Okay, maybe they
Annie
know.
went around behind and
No,
flanked
I was
them
behind
after
you.
I asked. Oh, there's still one on our snipe.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's still one on our spinner. Go away!
I got one of the minis.
Okay, we need to be aggressive
We
here.
need zone, we need zone, we need zone. There we
Alright,
go.
we got it, we got it. Be aggressive.
Okay.
Got the Explo.
Taking away
Aggressive,
paint.
you got him.
They're probably gonna be taking
They dropped
top
on me
left
in
north
court.
most of the time.
Watch
Yeah.
snipe.
Where'd they
T-Tech.
go? Yeah,
There's snipe.
I'm right here.
There's snipe
Oh, there's a
T-Tech
heavy
on
here
top
though.
of it.
I didn't get that one. Bottom
Okay.
right, bottom right, bottom right on the grate now. On the grate, on the grate. Right side. Get zone if we can. We need a little more paint on it.
Yep.
I'm down to weight breaker. Heavy on right
Hey.
still, nice.
There we go. We got it. We got it. We got it. Okay, do it again.
Hold up.
Make sure we're keeping zone. I'm gonna try and
Yeah,
stay
I'm on
closer
it.
to zone this time.
I'm here.
There's a lot of paint.
Yeah, you and I are probably best suited here. I can paint pretty well.
Actually,
Yeah.
haven't picked out
No,
the
I
Explo,
used
so
to
I'll
got
get
the
that.
heavies. Good. I got zone.
One on Fight Club underneath.
Oh.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Right side,
here.
right side, Fight Club.
I got him. I
There
got
you
him.
Nice.
Gem
Yeah, I
died
just
ages
popped it
ago.
in
We are
chat.
all having the same collective delusion.
I popped the ink jet and then everyone just goes, go. And then a heavy appeared in their spawn. I was like, alright, cool, I'll shoot them.
Also, thank you so much for the membership, Octawari membership. I can say words, I promise. Thank you for the fun Mega Turf lobby earlier. GG's. Yeah, that was kind of incidental, but I'm happy it happened anyway. Fight Club is that area underneath Sturgeon Shipyard. It is the area where there is no paint, there is no movement, there is only fight and hide.
Yep. I love that
It's a
spot
very silly
sometimes.
place. It is a place where men are men, squids are squids, and silliness ensues.
There we go. That's what I was waiting for.
Stopped being a member when you never did?
It's Puck!
I guess it just gives you a notification every month or something.
Puck! Puck, why are you on E-Leader? How do you betray me like this?
Well, I missed the jump. 'Cause it did
I'm
not
gonna
squid roll.
pretend I didn't see that. I got sniped.
Okay. Second time's a charm. Nope, nope, nope. Okay, we're just swimming out there normally.
Maybe there's some-
Oh,
second
how
time?
the...
Them! Oh dear goodness, the pro, or the splash.
Traded him. Ballpoint on right.
Yeah.
Okay. Third time is actually the charm, though. Why is it not
Quite
squid
check the
roll?
zone.
Excuse me.
I got the ballpoint.
We're gonna
There we
keep
go.
doing this.
The paintbrush is just very annoying.
There, was that really so hard?
Hi.
Oh,
Hello there, ballpoint. Please go away, thank you.
Ballpoint has went away. Why is this the safest spot versus a leader? I don't know.
scary. Oh, let's see if I can deal with them.
Someone's gonna go left, I think.
Yeah, splash.
Oh,
I'm down to whales.
No.
Um,
Do not
It's
pursue.
just you, it's just you.
Yeah, I'm just jetting because I need some. Yeah, that's. Ah, I was cornered. I was behind the little block from the
I'm in on right for whenever we're ready.
I'm on the left.
I think they saw me.
Leader sees me. I got their splash though.
Oh,
Threw down a breaker. They also threw down a breaker. I need help.
got English.
I just need someone to distract top mid.
Ugh,
You got it.
there were mines
You
everywhere.
got it.
Thank you. Leader's on the back right. Be careful when you push that. Trying to get zone.
Ball point. On left.
Come
Double
on.
point.
What am I doing?
English left. English
And
back
I
right.
can't.
Right. Outside left.
Got one.
I'll be behind.
Leader
you.
got me.
Oh no.
Leaders on right though, they're stuck. Nice, you
I
got,
got
this.
it. I got it. I need zone
There's
though.
two
and There's
down.
one on the back left. I got one. I got both.
What's up?
Okay.
Ooh, jumping in.
Painting for strike, almost there. Oh dear.
Yes,
We're two down.
So, hey Jerry, you want to do the thing?
I'm actually able to stay on zone here. I'll probably just
Okay,
do
well,
that for
I'm
now.
just gonna splat them up here while I'm
Sounds good.
in a decent spot. Ballpoint's got
I'll
my
support that
number,
with
though.
bombs. Brush drop left. Brush down.
Oh, and that was
Crab dropping out left.
yeah. This paint zone, Jim, if you can help
Kill
that,
it.
What if I flank the crab?
that works too. Just as long as you help keep zone. Oh,
3,
okay.
2, 1,
I'm just-
game. See, it helped.
Yeah. Well, you flanked distracted, and I was painting the zone, so I guess it did work. The brush was about to recap it, but
Hey guys, I did the Debbie thing.
I noticed. And funny coincidence, we won.
I know, right?
I'll have you know that most of those deaths were me falling into the water.
The funny part is, they noticed. Well, here we go again. Leaders on the grates.
Okay.
I have flanked. This
Got
is
two.
hilarious. Good job, Jerry. Top left is one. I think they see it. They see it. I'm just getting paint. Oh, that's a Zuka. No. No, thank you. Oh, that's a bomb.
Thank you.
Ooh-wee.
That works.
Oh, there's
Is
one
there-
on snipe. Woo!
That works.
Oh, leader
Thank you.
sees me.
Top left, yeah.
I'm down. Leader spools.
I'm gonna try and jump in and get out.
Oh.
No. That was not my plan of escaping, but it worked. It's a bomb point here.
You leaders on the
No, leave me alone. Go away. Thank you.
Leader down. T-Tech weak.
We
Got
did.
him.
We-
Last
we-
one.
we
They're
did.
snipe. That's game.
right. Nice.
I turned around and there's a bomb point charge right there, and then they popped inkjet, and I was alive.
Dr. Scientist is making a really good point. They say the game should give a medal for most water deaths in a match. I agree. I think I deserve recognition for this. My contribution is going unnoticed by the game, and I don't appreciate that.
My contribution is deep sea diving.
If they need proof, we can just go back to the counter that we made on your stream, like your other channel.
Yeah.
I think it still exists.
It probably does. Few there are who remember it, though.
I'm using heavy for badge purposes.
It
I'm,
is
like,
my
over
God-given
halfway.
right to play dualies on Mahi and roll off the map at least 5 times. Exactly.
Once I get gold badge on the heavy, I am going to go back to Hydra and get that gold badge on Booyah Bomb.
Especially dualies with reef slider, so you can reef slide the edge off the edge just as many times. Oh, look, see here.
Man.
Well,
Oh,
oh, they're all in a line!
what?
So, get the zone.
Hang out underneath here, and
On me. Nice.
that's a good.
Man, I never even had to ask them to line up in single file. There's a flank on the left. They did it
Yeah.
for me.
I'm on my way over to that.
I'm there.
Oh dear.
Okay, they're just painting. They're up top still. They dropped on you now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
I got shot blocked,
yeah. V shots coming right.
We're 2 down on left.
and I might die. I might die here. Oh dear. Hey, no, I'm still here. Yep. I could not jump out. Buttons.
Alright. Don't go in yet.
I have jet ready.
I'll
Right.
be on the right in about 2 seconds.
striking in from left. I'm being pushed by the wiper. Traded them.
Got one. Top mid.
Talk one right, Debbie.
Oh!
Traded.
I heard it and my brain was like, what's right again?
It's just
Oh.
UX.
Yeah. The wiper kited me.
I'm being pushed on left. I got one. I'm down.
I got another.
Nice. That's 3 down. Get zone.
That's one
Sprinkler,
left.
do your thing, please.
Back of zone. Back of zone's last.
Blaster's on the right. I got him.
That's wiper.
Junior on back of their flat.
On left.
Oh, I got
Nice.
that. Let's go. I thought I was eating Azuka today.
Oh,
I already did.
wiper.
On
left.
left.
Flank.
Good shots.
Whoops, I didn't mean to do that.
One on zone.
Got 2. I'm down.
now
They're
I got
wiped.
2. I have painted the drop, but they are still here. That's a hammer.
Several on my left.
Yeah, wiper down.
Junior's really weak on zone. Nice.
Got it.
Got 2 of them.
Trying to keep
They're
zone.
one shot on zone.
Well,
Oh,
I
there's
got
still one right here.
I got rid of the wave breaker. I guess that helps.
Well, I got wiped out by the wiper.
I need to go and attend to food really quick. I will be back in just a minute, but we should probably hit stop.
Okay.
We'll be able to play one more once I've got that and I'm ready to go again. And then the internet will die. And then we'll start the VOD reviews.
So we're stopping.
Yeah.
And then...
We're stopping, we're doing one more, and then we'll do the VOD reviews.
To make this quick, I will reopen room, but only one can join through me at the moment.
Scrubbing slots, so they'll be.
I mean, I have been the teacher a few times on Squid School. I had full control. For those who remember those days. I've just been busy, so I haven't had a chance to really do any other lessons with people at the moment. A lot of stuff going on. Been playing with a lot of pickup teams. Playing with my own team. Got a pickup team for the Proving Grounds Rumble. That's on Saturday, which is teams join from people of the region that are given. So it's a lot of like individual states or just categories of the provinces. So I never what is it? Ocarina of Pen. I've had a few times where I've had a couple takeovers on the lessons. I've even actually streamed on Squid School myself a couple times. So for doing those lessons. But I have been busy as of late, so I am still just, around here for Squid School. What's the Proving Grounds Rumble thing? It's, what is it? It's another tournament by Inkling Performance Labs, where, well, like I said, you team up with people of your given region, or province, or of course I say province first because I'm Canadian, or state and all that, and then sign up and play in a tournament.
All right, here are the cats again. And there's the alarm that tells me that the internet's gonna die after this game.
Jerry, did you ever looked into the Proving Grounds Rumble thing?
Proving Grounds Rumble. This is not
Yeah,
ringing
that's
bells.
That's the one where all like the states and provinces were. Put into different
Oh,
regions.
Region Rumble. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I never did actually look to see if I am one of the strongest players in my state.
Oh. I
It's
didn't
entirely
think-
possible that they are representing out there without me, but I feel like I've missed that ship. That ship has sailed.
You can always look at the chats anyway and see who is responding in them, just to see who's there, you know? Also, Dr. Scientist said Debbie and Chase made a great team in the Creator Clash. That was really cool to see. Yeah, I like how our comp turned out. It actually was really suitable to like what I'm already familiar with, so it helped with my shot calls.
Yeah, you
It
can
worked
basically
really
just
well.
treat Chase like Cookie, right?
Sig, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah, that works too.
Pinky was Cookie.
Hydra is watching me from grades.
Okay.
That's a crab and a leader.
Not
Nice.
crab.
Leader's on the left to snipe and Hydra's on the right, great. Oh, leader's going to... leader's low on the left.
Okay.
And Hydra's still on great.
Hydra popped Booyah. I'm just
They
running
popped
away because
Booyah
it's gonna get
for
thrown at me.
themselves. Oh, Hydra dropped in their pit.
So did Leader. They're both down there. How did that miss?
crap.
Oh, man. Okay, good shots.
Crab on site.
I'm just gonna hide behind this block. Oh, shoot, if they explo shot one more time, I'm gonna die. Oh, I'm being challenged. I won. Oh,
Oh, no.
Man, they do not want me up here.
would anybody?
Got
Both
one.
shot. Oh, another shooter's on my left. I need help. Oh, weak on the left.
Leader down.
Thank you. Look forward. Bomb up top left. There's paint up there. That's where they came from.
Ah, shoot.
What happened?
Hydra. They got me from plat.
Can't. So basically, you're saying it's okay to be over here, but not. Oh, right bridge. They're gonna peek up. Yep, on zone.
I see it. I'm behind them. I got
Hydra
him.
got me. Don't flip for that. Go left. Go left. Go left.
I have some hits. E-leader on left.
Down to Crab.
Good job, man.
Grab.
I'm gonna start
You're just gonna
poking
see
it
me
left.
Drop. Yeah. I'm right here, on the right. But I got one. One's on our spinner. Yeah.
Second with Kelly hit.
One right window. They're down. Traded.
Oh, nice. There's still one behind us on our snipe.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
trying to fight it. I'll try and
Oh.
help you here. Okay. Oh,
Got him.
good. Okay, I have paint on the zone. Hydra's charging on the snipe. Leader's up there too.
Yeah.
Booyah bomb! It's on Jerry.
Yeah, I'm down.
There's a shooter to my right. Got it.
Just keep
Keep it
zone. They
zoned,
can't
keep
have
it
paint.
painted. There is a shooter right here. Okay. Protect.
Yeah.
Jump! Oh, I jumped at the real worst time. Oh, hello.
There we go. That's game.
Cool.
It's like, oh, hello. I have met my fate.
Right, same. I could kill everything.
You know what? It's fine because the fact that they went for V, you were able to spot them
Yeah.
on zone, which means, hey, more zone paint for us.
All right. So, as those of you who have watched the stream frequently will know, my internet goes out at a certain time every day. And that time is at the top of the hour here. It's coming up pretty soon. So, stream is not over. We will just be needing to take a minute or so break because the stream's going to die. So, just sit tight for just a second when it does go out, and we will be back right as soon as it's done with the VOD reviews. I still don't think I have any messages from that one crazy Adrestian dude, but that's fine because we still have 2 players who are here for the VOD reviews, so should work out all right anyway. Yeah, there's the map mode update. I feel like there was a thing that I was going to say besides that, and I don't remember what it is, but it also probably doesn't matter because it's going to cut me off in the middle of saying it anyway, so it would have had to wait until after the whole thing was done anyway. So, time for the stream to end comically right when I'm talking about it ending, because that's what always happens, doesn't it? Should be any minute now.
Right?
What was that?
It's like, this is where we go, booyah, and the bomb kills the stream.
10, 9, 8. I don't know if it's actually going to be at that time. It's like somewhere at the beginning of 6:01 or at the end of 6 o'clock. It's never that consistent. It's weird. But I have full faith that it will happen soon. And if it doesn't, then that would be very neat and very poggers. But